2,000 papers we need to fill, but we're in deep connections. I'm sorry, not to intention. Long story short, this is our project. Of course, the rubble that we gathered is contaminated because there was asbestos, old buildings, and so on. So we had to find an innovative method of treating this rubble. The aim of this project is to do three things. First is to extract the plastics out of this rubbles and the recyclables, use the metals and so on to help rebuild the city. The plastics, we found a solution for it. The high value recyclables was sent to recycling to ensure the circular economy targets are met. But then, as you know, there is 80 plus types of plastic, only 5 gets recycled. The other 75 we transformed into this. This is a new patent technology. It's called ROGP, stands for Rejects of Glass and Plastics. And we use this to rebuild the city, whether by providing public furniture or revamping the buildings, changing the building facades, helping the infrastructure that got destroyed. So basically, like I mentioned, we coordinated with the 4,000 volunteers. We transported and separated the rubble and glass. UNICEF provided us with assistance. We got a state-of-the-art rubble crusher that comes with the sorting. So even for the asbestos case, we operate and sort remotely 500 meters away from the rubble that we gather. We had to develop an innovative way to make sure that no one gets harmed out of that. They are already been in a miserable state. We conducted site maintenance, and we still do till now. Because till now, there is still rubber comes after a year and 3 months, unfortunately. The main target is to extract plastic, to use the rubble after crushed to get standardized size. The same with glass, because glass, because of the mixed nature, cannot be recycled. Fill the mountains, we place soil on top of it, and we place trees, and we rehabilitated the mountains instead of sending the rubble back to the landfill. And of course, the thing. Even the guys that wanted to do that, because there is fairness still in this world, I think they got sanctioned 2 days ago by the United States. They're too corrupt. So, like I mentioned, we filled the quarries with crushed rubble and glass. We covered the soil and produce cityscape. For the 300,000 tons that fell, we were able to collect 200,000 tons of rubble, more than 25,000 tons of glass. We extracted 5,000 tons of plastic already, and we said, okay, there was never a solution for the construction and demolition waste in Lebanon. We have the equipment. We got more ambitious, and we decided to provide, after this project ends, a permanent solution for the construction and demolition in Lebanon in general. So we built another project to provide an area where the people can simply bring the rubble over there, where it gets crushed and treated in an environmental method. And as you can see, this is what we built out of the ROGP. So far, we built around 300 public chairs. We built around 400 recycling bins. We're building street signs. And part of it, we don't want the people to forget, but we want to tell, because you shouldn't forget such a misery, but we want people to remember it, but in a positive way. So there's a lesson that got out of that. And we try to keep the city, because it wasn't green, to make the city green. So all of our public chairs had the planters inside them, which we placed with either an olive tree or which resembles the piece. And it's also as Mediterranean as it gets. And this is the other applications. One of the things, because we also got more ambitious by time, is that there was the port. It was destroyed. There was thousands of containers destroyed. And instead of sending them to be sold as scrap, we took them, we rehabilitated them, and we transferred them into modular play units, and we gave them to schools. And as you can see, this is the last one. So it has the swings, it has the monkey jumpers at school, and we transformed the damaged thing into something useful. Also with the plate, that this was coming from the port explosion. And when we saw the power of the union, and this is what we originally do as Development Inc., we manage the sustainability for PepsiCo, Nestle, Diageo, usually in Lebanon. And we were quite successful with it. And we convinced the companies to work together. And we signed with the UN Habitat a regional alliance for sustainability, in which we are working together whether to influence favorable regulations or to Uber the costs. There has no point to have a separate operation with a different CapEx and OpEx. So why not we work together? And this is how it worked. We were lucky with it. We started with Lebanon. Now we are starting in 2 weeks in Jordan. We're starting in KSA in 1 month. And we're starting in Morocco before the end of January as well. And that's it. So, and it's a part of it also that we're collecting the plastics, the high value plastics being sent to recycling. We're taking the rejects that comes out of the project in general and go to the communities that recycled with us, and we provide them with the public furniture that we showed to you, and we tell them, thank you. From one side, it helped the community. From another side, we created value for plastics that was deemed as unrecyclable before. And we're creating new jobs, we're creating new value for the majority of plastic that used to be sent before. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Dawood. I think we'll have many questions about your project later on, and also about the application in other cities in Arab countries. Basima, the floor is yours for 7 minutes also, and 1 more minute if you need. And your presentation is based on pictures, mainly in photos, about what you did in Mosul. Am I wrong?
Yes, you're right. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Basima Abdurrahman. I am the founder of KESK. KESK means green in Kurdish. It's the first company that is established in Iraq to introduce green building services and solutions. So today I want to basically just go through a project of ours that we have done in collaboration with UN Habitat. This project is built to be an educational destination for different institutions, for different government entities in the city of Mosul, to be the first green building, the green certified building in Iraq. So this building was a bombed community building in the middle of a park in the west side of Mosul city. I don't know if you're aware of the amount of damage that happened in the city of Mosul, but the west part of Mosul, 80% of the city is either damaged or destroyed. So this community building is in the middle of a neighborhood where all the buildings and housing units there has some sort of damage because of the military operations to liberate the city from ISIS control. So basically, we needed to work around all the limitations that we had. You can see that the building is extremely damaged. And there were some parts of the building that we needed to tear down and rebuild again because they were unstable because of the amount of bombing. And this building had 2 holes on the roof of it because of the bombing. So we decided that we're not going to patch the roof. We're going to leave it there. We built a solar tube in these 2 locations in the roof, and they were locally made from local resources. We just gave them that direction to the team, and they did the whole thing, and it was perfect. So what's so special about this project? What's special about this project is that there are so many entities that are planning to go and develop sustainable buildings and solutions in Iraq, but when they see the limitations of resources and regulations to support these kind of initiatives, we just hear about a project that is supposed to be LEED certified or have some sort of certification, BRAEAM certification, and then nothing goes through because of the limitations. So what we've done, we made sure that we retrofit the building to be 8 times more energy efficient with a proper installation for the whole building envelope. And also we made sure that we build the BOQ from local resources or materials that are available locally. This way, we are also limiting the CO2 emissions that associated with importing materials. So we helped not only in retrofitting the design of the building to be passive energy building, but also we built the BOQ and we mapped out all the local resources that are available within the country to support the local initiatives and also to, sorry, I feel like I'm not able to. Yeah, so basically, this is the final look of the building. I did not want to have a long presentation, but in brief, this building is a LEED certified building. The certification is in process. We focused on all different aspects of reducing water consumption, energy consumption, having a better indoor environment for occupants, and also introducing green strategies by making sure that we're planting around the building to make sure that the plantation around it is from native and adaptive materials. And we collaborated with the local universities to direct us on exactly what kind of plants that needs to be planted around. And the implementation has delayed because of COVID, but beginning of 2021, the building was retrofitted completely and is welcoming visitors. If you have any questions, I'm more than happy to address. And thank you so much for the opportunity to present our initiative.
Thank you, Basima. Thank you for this presentation. And I have many questions to begin, but maybe first I give the floor to Dr. Sameh to react. You are in the World Bank and you are working in the resilience field for many years now. You saw many initiatives all around the world. And now we have two very good initiatives in our region. I want you to react on the position of these initiatives in what you see where you funded from the World Bank from one side, and what do you think about the potential of this kind of innovation? These are pilot projects, and having green cities after a disaster like Mosul, it'd be a huge challenge for the Iraqi government and for the city of Mosul, etc., etc. What do you think about it? And what about the example of Mohammed about Lebanon? And I think that the war is a key element of their future development, and there's many elements. Mohammed said something about the financial crisis, etc., etc. But what I'd like to know is, what do you think about this question of construction and demolition waste management in cities?
Thank you, Dr. Youssef. Thanks a lot, Mohammed and Basima. Fantastic initiatives, and makes one really proud to see the type of innovation, entrepreneurship from young Arab women and men. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Maybe a couple of thoughts, because I have a lot to say over here, so you're going to have to hold me back, Dr. Youssef. Okay.
I forgot to say it.
First point: how important the waste sector and the building sector are for us to remain on track with the Paris Agreement, to remain within the confines of a 1.5 degree world increase. And I think these are two of the most important sectors. I think in accordance with the Coalition on Urban Transitions report of 2019, we are capable of making basically a 90% reduction on emissions generated in today's cities with technologies that we already know. So we know that cities are responsible for 70% of greenhouse gas emissions, and 90% of these could be reduced with known technologies today between now and 2050, which would allow us to stay within a 1.5 degree world. 60% of these would have to come from the building sector, and they'll be mostly about reductions in energy consumption, resource efficiency, material efficiency, etc. 5% is going to have to come from the waste sector, but between your two sectors, and especially when the initiatives are about recycling construction waste, it's all the more important. So definitely a lot to do over here. The rest comes from the transport sector and from material efficiency. Point number two, from a waste perspective, and again, it equally applies for the building sector, we're on a very dangerous trajectory going forward, because what we know is that the world is generating much more waste, so the rate of increase in waste is basically twice the rate of population growth. So basically, it's, if you will, your typical environmental disasters that we're headed towards. I'm talking here much more about, if you will, household waste, lesser so construction waste, but the point applies to the building sector as well, which is as countries are becoming wealthier, they're creating much more waste. But there are examples out there, which is beyond a certain level of economic development. There is some sort of an environmental convergence or a Kuznets curve where there is a reduction in waste generation. So we know in general that the average for low-income countries is less than 1 kilo per person per day of waste generated. We know that this gets to about 1.6 kilos per person per day in upper-income countries. In the US, it's about 2.2. But there's a country like Japan that generates 900 grams per person per day. There are cities in there, like Kitakyushu, that generates 400 grams per person per day. So there is a waste hierarchy out there between waste reduction, reuse, recycling, basically RDF, the energy extracted out of waste, before thinking about landfilling. So there's a whole process. And I think what's really great with Mohammed and his team's work is that they have put that for a much more complex, if you will, category of waste, which is waste from construction. There's a lot to be done in the building sector in terms of building much more efficiently. I think we're now hearing about the cross-laminated timber, CLT, and the basically reduced embedded emissions within these construction techniques. And they're helping us also to build basically taller buildings as we go. So the technology is improving to enable a denser city. I think when we're talking about green buildings, and that's one of the things we're doing at the World Bank, we have a tool that we've developed. I mean, in fact, two tools, one called Trace that focuses mainly on energy efficiency. And we have one called Edge. And this one looks at the whole range of energy efficiency. So it's a tool probably quite similar to what Basima has spoken about. And this is the type of tool that enables developers, enables property owners to think about ways of reducing basically energy consumption, water consumption, achieving much more resource efficiency as far as heating, ventilation are concerned, thinking about building facades to reduce the porosity, natural ventilation, thinking about a range of techniques that could reduce the energy and resource intensity of building, in addition to the way it gets built. And by doing that, you contribute to creating those green, low-carbon buildings that Basim is talking about, which could then be rewarded with green financing and much more advantageous financing terms. Maybe one little point to add over there, because we get quite a bit of focus on green buildings, is to think not just about green buildings, but green neighborhoods, because we've had countries, I mean, one of which would be Mexico, which has managed really to advance the green building construction, but the location of the affordable housing developments that they were promoting through a green approach were much further out away relative to job centers, and therefore the commuting patterns that resulted from such construction, if you will, offset the impact of the greening of the building. You've greened the building, you've reversed the commuting patterns. So thinking about compact cities, about dense cities where there is a livable density, whereas that's much more emphasis on walkability, on active transportation, becomes a perfect complement to the green building approach. That way you're greening building, you're greening the cities, and you're contributing both through the waste reduction, but also the recycling, the reuse that Mohammed has spoken about to create overall green cities. much more to say about resilient
Thank you,
cities, but I'll stop here.
Yeah. My question is to Basma to begin. You mentioned that the certification was something important, the label LEED. But as I know, these labels are dedicated to specific countries. It has to adapt it to each country. How we deal with this and why it was important? Because you had already very important targets on materials, on energy efficiency. Is it for funding? Is it for something else?
The tools that are used to help in certifying that this building is actually has followed these credit points and it is meeting the requirements is important just to give the validity. The certification for me is not as important if the building, because it will add some extra cost. But for example, we have this new trend in Iraq where someone is going to design a building, add few trees in the front, and they would say this is a green building. So how do we distinguish an actual green sustainable building from just a conventional building, basic building that has few trees in the front? So here it's important, since we don't have any local tool to help us track the performance of the building, we are somehow bound to deal with international tools. But I always advocate to have our own unique tool that is applicable to, just like Istidama, for example, that reflects the needs and the requirements of the region and the resources we have in the region. So for us is more of a validity concept.
Thank you. I share exactly what you said, that label and the certification is not mandatory. It's the approach which is important. And for Iraq and other countries of the Arab region, maybe having a kind of common approach by integrating climate conditions, it's something to be managed maybe by UN Habitat or other people, or World Bank maybe. Mohammed, my question is, you have a really ambitious pilot project, and you talked about transfer it to other Arab cities. My question is how to share this kind of experience with other cities. I mean, we are discovering your project. I heard a lot about the harbor, the regeneration of the harbor. The German companies came, present urban development projects. They never talked about waste management. They don't talk about infrastructure. So my question is how to share these issues related to resilience and climate change adaptation between the cities. Is there any innovative approach that can propose?
Well, it all started with the questions we raised at the time. Is that when you see on social media the oceans are flooded with plastics, I always wondered why. And I tried to trace this. And it's mainly because of two reasons. First of all is that there's 7 types what's like feasible to be recycled. And the second part is that the volume in a small village set by a river, like a small village in Ecuador or something, it's not even feasible to recycle anything. What we want to do and what we think that would help the other cities, make cities work around, is that we provide a one-stop shop for a small village in Ecuador where there's, for example, 400, 500 residents. They consume plastics as well, but we provide them with a cheap technology that they can take glass and plastic. By the way, I forgot to mention, this is 40% glass, 60% plastic. And we would want to provide the small cities, the small communities all over the world, not only in MENA area, with the technology where they can build their infrastructure, develop their own village, develop their own cities. And the same applies for a major city like London or Paris, where they will focus on or in Cairo, where they will focus on the main streams of plastics, and the other ones either goes to a waste to energy facility or goes straight to the landfill. We want people to use this to build infrastructure with 80% discounted prices, we wish that one day they quadruple or maybe 10 times make the gate fees for the entry, so people really goes. It will be in the best benefit of the waste management company to recycle these kinds of plastics. Once we have this, and we have this, I believe we have this technology right now, we can give it to every small city where they can use a technology that costs $50,000 to build their own city. And this is how we can target to the MENA region.
Thank you, Mohammed. I have many other questions, but time is short and we have another session. So thank you very much. And maybe you can continue the discussion during the lunch and the whole day, because I think we are staying the afternoon also. Thank you very much. And you can may I invite directly my three mayors to front, because maybe there's a translation, I think. Our session 4 is dedicated to advancing green urban recovery and reconstruction by decision-making process. But let me first introduce our three mayors. I'll begin with Her Excellency Ms. Souad Abdelrahim, from the mayor of Tunis, the capital of Tunisia. And for a long time, when at the university, I used to talk about informal settlement and the good practices. I talked about Tunisia because you were the first country in the region working on these issues, and you did a great job, maybe in the 90s, 20s. So now with the climate change, you have very good experiences also. So and we are going to talk about issues related to floodings, and we can talk also about the green buildings, it was mentioned, but we'll focus maybe on climate change impacts and effects. Then and he's going to stay with us, Mr. Book. Come back, please. He is the mayor of Tyre, Sur, for those who don't know in English. And Tyre is a very interesting city because there's a lot of urban development projects undergoing in a very difficult context of financial crisis in Lebanon and also of migration to Tyre. We'll begin with this after the presentation of Dr. Thiqa Al-Wahsh. She is a former mayor of Baghdad, and I am not going to say anything about this because you did a great job also about governance, management of Baghdad, and in a political context, very difficult and very hard to be considered in a stable way. So who would like to begin? Maybe Your Excellency, the Mayor of Tunis, about the urban development, the flooding issues, and what's the good practices and the recovery, even if there's no need for recovery in Tunisia. The micro, please.
شكرا، مرحبا بكافة الحضور. في بداية المداخلة أود أن أقدم الشكر الجزيل لمكتبكم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية على هذه المبادرة الطيبة والدعوة الكريمة، كما لا يمكنني أن أعبر على امتناني التام لكافة المنظمين والمشرفين على هذا الملتقى الدولي الهام وعلى تصميم السلطات المعنية بمنظومة دبي الشقيقة، والدعوة كانت لطيفة في هذا البلد الجميل. من يخص التجربة ما يخص حبيت نقدم بلدية تونس. بلدية تونس هي بلدية من عام 1858. أول امرأة رئيس بلدية تونس كان لها شرف أنها كانت أول امرأة ذات 2018. وكذلك كما هي دائما المرأة التونسية، اليوم لدينا أول امرأة رئيسة حكومة في تونس، ولنا شرف أن المرأة التونسية رائدة في مجالها. بالتالي أن تكون لنا تجربة فريدة، أن تكون لنا نساء قائدات في هذا المجال. لابد أن تكون هناك ابليكاسيون دو ريزولتا، معناها لابد أن تكون هناك نتائج فعلية وملموسة، لأنه كما تعلمون جميعا ممكن نحاسب المرأة أكثر من نحاسب الرجل. وبنت تونس عليسة وهي امرأة كذلك. النتائج لابد أن تكون إيجابية، ونعلم الجميع أن التغيرات المناخية ومدى تأثيرها كذلك على المدن مهم جدا اليوم أن نتحدث على مدن آمنة، أن نتحدث على مدن صحية، أن نتحدث كيف يمكن لنا عبر البرامج المشهورة منظمة الأمم المتحدة للسكان أن تقدم هذه البرامج وأن نكون شركاء. قبل ما ندخل تونس مرفأ طيب معجب بالتجربة، أي أن نقدم تجربة كانت كبيرة جدا وارتفع فيها الأمل وأصبح الأمل عمل، والعمل لابد أن ينجز المال، والمال قوام الأعمال. حبينا نتعرفوا على ما هي البرامج التي ساعدت التغيير على هذه السرعة في الإنجاز في برامج من أجل سليمة ولكن هو كما قلت دفع فينا أمل الإنجاز وأمل حب العمل وحب الخطاب، خاصة في الظروف اللي نعيش فيها عموما. بالتالي حول التغييرات المناخية وتأثيراتها على المدن، تونس الخضراء كما يجب لي دائما أن أسميها وهي كذلك، عملنا في إطار مقاومة التقلبات المناخية ولتنعكس سلبا تونس في فيضانات موسمية مع
اوكي رجعوا ورا بس انا عايز ايه عايز المنظر اعمل ايه بقى؟ مش عايز يلمس الهواء ولا لا ايوه لا انا اسف ما ينفعش اغير
سي لا لا سي لا سي لا هلا تشيك سي لا
الكاميرا دلوقتي حالا خلي
لا لا سي لا سي لا سي لا لا هلا تشيك سي لا
出执行主委，尊敬的各位来。
صباح الخير جميعا. برجاء اتخاذ المقاعد لبدء الحفل. برجاء الالتزام بتدابير احترازية.
احنا ممكن نشيل دول علشان ازيك يا فندم؟ ازي حضرتك؟ Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the most gracious, the most merciful. Kindly take your seats and put on your masks, please, for your safety. May I pay your attention, please? Kindly take your seats and put on your masks. Thank you. I wish you a lovely morning and a fruitful session. And to all our dear guests, hope that you have enjoyed yesterday activities and the beautiful aura of the Karnak temple. Have a beautiful day. May I pay your attention, please? Kindly take your seats and put your masks on for your safety. Thank you. Okay. Kindly know that we have speeches in various languages. So for those here in person, please collect your headsets from the back of the hall. Also, interpretation is available for those joining us on Zoom. Languages available this morning are English, Arabic, French, Russian, Spanish, and Chinese. Good morning, Excellencies, Ministers, Governors, Ambassadors, dignitaries, representatives of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Greetings to you all. My name is Dr. Taghreed Hussein, and I will be your Master of Ceremonies for today. The World Cities Day was established through a UN resolution and has been held on this day, the 31st of October, for the past 8 years. This is the first time it has come to Egypt, or indeed anywhere in this region. So welcome you all here today. And I would like to introduce Egypt's first Undersecretary at the Ministry of Local Development, General Hamza Darwish, to say a few words this morning. General.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيدة السفيرة ميمونة محمد شريف، وكيل الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة والمدير التنفيذي لمنظمة الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، السادة الوزراء المحافظين، السيدات والسادة الضيوف الحضور. اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بحضراتكم نيابة عن وصفها تجسيداً للحضارة المصرية القديمة التي لا تزال آثارها قائمة حتى الآن، كما نجتمع في ضوء ما تشهده مصر من نهضة عمرانية غير مسبوقة في كافة مناحي الحياة اقتصادياً واجتماعياً وعمرانياً، وكأننا نستلهم من تاريخ الأجداد ما يعيننا لبناء حاضر مشرق ومستقبل أفضل. إننا في مصر نولي اهتماماً كبيراً بقضية المناخ والتغيرات المناخية والتكيف مع آثاره، لذا فقد حرصت الحكومة المصرية بدعم وتكليف القيادة السياسية على استضافة ملتقى هذا العام، وقام السيد رئيس الجمهورية مشكوراً بوضع هذا الملتقى تحت رعاية سيادته، والذي جاء تحت عنوان تكيف وتعزيز قدرات المدن لمقاومة التغيرات المناخية، ونتطلع إلى مساهمته في تعزيز اهتمام المجتمع الدولي بالتنمية الحضرية المستدامة في إطار أهداف الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة وتعزيز التعاون بين البلدان والمدن لمعالجة تحديات التحضر والمساهمة في التقليل من آثاره. لقد اتخذت مصر منذ عام 2014 خطوات سريعة لتعزيز مساهماتها في مواجهة تغير المناخ، حيث تم دمج بعد تغير المناخ في الخطط الاستراتيجية للوزارات ليصبح أحد الركائز التخطيط الاستراتيجي بها، كما تم إنشاء المجلس الوطني للتغيرات المناخية برئاسة السيد رئيس مجلس الوزراء لخلق مزيد من الدعم السياسي والتعاون الوثيق بين الوزارات المعنية بشكل مباشر أو غير مباشر. وكجزء من برنامج عمل الحكومة تولي وزارة التنمية المحلية اهتمام كبير بتنفيذ السياسات الوطنية وتوجيه المحافظات نحو تبني استراتيجيات تساهم في مواجهة المتغيرات المناخية والحد من الاحتباس الحراري. كما تحرص الحكومة على تطبيق مجموعة من الاعتبارات البيئية والاجتماعية في كافة المشروعات والبرامج التي تقوم بتنفيذها، كبرنامج التنمية المحلية في صعيد مصر وبرنامج حياة كريمة. السيدات والسادة، في ختام كلمتي أكرر ترحيب السيد اللواء محمود شعراوي وزير التنمية المحلية بسيادتكم، وتطلع السيد الوزير للتعرف على خبرات الدول المشاركة في التنمية الحضرية المستدامة وبخاصة في التصدي للتغيرات المناخية. ونحن نأمل أن يتم الاستفادة من النتائج الإيجابية المتوقعة لهذا المؤتمر في بناء حاضر ومستقبل أفضل. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you so much, General Darwish. The overall theme for World Cities Day is Better City, Better Life. And each year, a different sub-theme is chosen. This year, we're focusing on the greatest threat to our planet, namely the climate crisis. We're looking at how to protect our urban centers under the theme Adapting Cities for Climate Resilience. United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction, the UNDRR, brings governments, partners, and communities together in order to reduce disaster risk and losses. And we will now be seeing a short video from the head of the UNDRR and special representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction, Ms. Mami Mizutori.
Excellencies, I would like to thank the government of the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Shanghai Municipal People's Government of the People's Republic of China, as well as our sister agency UN Habitat for this opportunity to address the opening ceremony of the 2021 World Cities Day. The theme for the 8th global celebration of World Cities Day, Adapting Cities for Climate Resilience, is timely and relevant, particularly as it comes on the eve of COP26. While we continue to grapple with COVID-19, it is important to remind ourselves that climate change remains the greatest risk driver. It amplifies disaster losses triggered by extreme weather events, and these losses are increasingly concentrated in urban areas. Over the past 30 years, 90% of all major recorded disasters have been related to climate change and extreme weather events. Climate change is generating more powerful storms, exacerbating coastal flooding, causing more deadly heat waves, prompting greater water shortages and protracted droughts. Yet, within this extremely challenging context, there is also a huge opportunity. The evidence is compelling. The more that cities invest in disaster-resilient infrastructure, the greater the benefits will be in terms of avoided disruption and reduced economic losses. In the next 20 years, more infrastructure will be built than in the previous 2,000 years. This investment will include new schools, hospitals, roads, and power supplies, and most of this investment will be in cities. Ensuring that this new infrastructure is disaster-proof would represent a great leap forward in sustainable urban development. Just over 2 weeks ago, on 13 October, the world celebrated the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction. The focus was on the importance of enhancing international cooperation and support to developing countries where the rapid pace of urbanization can easily create new risk. To this end, the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction and 10 core partners, including UN Habitat, we have launched the Making Cities Resilient 2030, also known as MCR 2030. It has been launched to help cities meet a key target of the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, which is to support cities to put in place their local strategies for disaster risk reduction. MCR 2030 is a unique multi-stakeholder initiative for building urban resilience to disasters through advocacy, sharing knowledge and experiences. An online dashboard acts as a marketplace for cities to access knowledge, resources, and service provided by development partners, academia, and the private sector. Current services include technical support for climate scenario planning, issuing green bonds, revision of building codes, the integration of health hazards into risk assessments, and much more. We are working to establish city-to-city learning networks, connecting multiple layers of government and building partnerships. I encourage all cities represented here today to join MCR 2030 to increase your resilience in the face of multiple hazards that you face. I am sorry not to be with you on this important occasion, and I wish you a very productive day. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Mami Mizutori. We've seen a short video on Her Excellency's behalf, the head of the UNDRR and special representative of the Secretary General for Disaster Risk Reduction. Now we'll hear a statement on behalf of the Secretary General of the League of Arab States, Honorable Ahmed Abul Ghait, which is being read by the Director of Water, Housing and Disaster Risk Reduction from the League of Arab States, Dr. Jamal Jaballah.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. معالي الأستاذ الدكتور المهندس مصطفى مدبولي رئيس الوزراء، معالي الأستاذ الدكتور المهندس عاصم الجزار وزير الإسكان والمرافق والمجتمعات العمرانية، معالي اللواء محمد شعراوي وزير التنمية المحلية، معالي المستشار مصطفى محمد ألهم محافظ الأقصر، سعادة السيدة ميمونة محمد شريف المدير التنفيذي لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات الفضليات، السادة الأفاضل، الحضور الكريم، اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أتوجه باسمكم جميعا إلى جمهورية مصر العربية قيادة وحكومة وشعبا على حسن الاستقبال وكرم الوفادة، وتحيات معالي الأمين العام السيد أحمد أبو الغيط لجمعكم الكريم وتمنياته لهذا الحدث الهام كل التوفيق والنجاح وكل التقدير والعرفان إلى راعي هذا الحدث الهام فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي. نعم، نجتمع اليوم بأرض الكنانة جمهورية مصر العربية للاحتفاء باليوم العالمي للمدن 2021، وإنها لفرصة طيبة أن يعقد هذا الحدث على أرض دولة عربية، فهنيئا لجمهورية مصر العربية. وهنا نود أن نتوجه بالشكر والتقدير لكل من ساهم في الإعداد والتحضير الجيد لهذا الحدث الهام، والشكر موصول إلى برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية على تعاونه المثمر مع الدول العربية، مما سمح لنا جميعا الوقوف على التحديات التي تواجهنا جميعا وإيجاد الحلول المناسبة والمبادرات القيمة لرفع أداء السياسة التنمية المحلية والحضرية في بلداننا. السيدات الفضليات، السادة الأفاضل، يربط جامعة الدول العربية ببرنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية علاقة تعاون فعال وهادف منذ عدة سنوات، وذلك منذ أن تم فتح المكتب الإقليمي للدول العربية لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية بالقاهرة. وقد تطورت هذه العلاقة إلى شراكة قائمة بين جامعة الدول العربية والبرنامج، مما نتج عنه المساهمة وبشكل فعال في وضع الاستراتيجيات والخطط العربية والعمل على تنفيذها على أرض الواقع، وكذلك على عقد المنتديات الإقليمية كل عامين للإسكان والتنمية الحضرية. وسيعقد المنتدى الوزاري العربي الرابع للإسكان والتنمية الحضرية المستدامة بإذن الله في المملكة الأردنية الهاشمية خلال شهر ديسمبر من هذا العام. كما أنه تم برمجة هذه المنتديات التي ستستضيفها الدول العربية إلى غاية عام 2031. وهذه إشارة واضحة من الدول العربية للانخراط في المجهود الدولي لتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة العالمية، وخاصة الهدف 11. إن التحولات وتعقيدات السياسة الدولية وإفرازاتها الجديدة والناشئة وتأثيراتها على الدول العربية سواء بطريقة مباشرة أو غير مباشرة أدى إلى نشوب نزاعات مسلحة في بعض الدول العربية أثرت سلبا وزادت الأمور تعقيدا، ومما لا يدع مجال للشك أنها ستعرقل هذه الدول في تحقيق أهداف التنمية العالمية للتنمية المستدامة 2030. أصحاب المعالي والسعادة، السيدات الفضليات، السادة الأفاضل، الحضور الكريم، يأتي احتفالنا اليوم نتيجة تتويج هيئة المجتمعات العمرانية التابعة لوزارة الإسكان والمرافق والمجتمعات العمرانية التابعة في جمهورية مصر العربية على الجائزة التقديرية التي يمنحها برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، وهي أحد أعرق الجوائز في العالم. ويندرج هذه النتيجة مساهمة جمهورية مصر العربية المتميزة في التنمية الحضرية، بما في ذلك الاستجابات المبكرة لكوفيد-19 وتحقيق أهداف التنمية المستدامة، وخاصة الهدف 11 جعل المدن والمستوطنات البشرية شاملة وآمنة ومرنة ومستدامة. إن ما بذلته مصر خلال السنوات الأخيرة في تنفيذ برنامج الإسكان الاجتماعي تحت القيادة الرشيدة لفخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي والمبادرات القومية الأخرى في مجال الإسكان والبنى التحتية والمدن الجديدة تستحق منا جميعا الإشادة والتقدير. نعم، إن هذه الإنجازات الواضحة المعالم تنم عن إدراك قوي لتحسين الظروف المعيشية للمواطن وتوفير الحياة الكريمة ضمن رؤية مصر 2030. فنجدد التهنئة لوزارة الإسكان ومرافق المجتمعات العمرانية بجمهورية مصر العربية، وواثقين أن المجهودات المبذولة ستؤدي بالتأكيد إلى النقلة النوعية من حيث توفير السكن الملائم والصحي والآمن للمواطن المصري. أما فيما يخص جعل المدن مستقرة وآمنة تستجيب لمتطلبات الحاضر وتستشرف المستقبل، لذا فإن إعداد الخطط والبرامج التي تأخذ بعين الاعتبار التأثيرات المناخية وضرورة التكيف في مجابهتها من خلال اتباع سياسات عمرانية متكاملة ومندمجة هي وحدها الكفيلة باستدامة التنمية المحلية. وهنا فإن المجتمع الدولي مطالب ببذل مجهودات أكبر في هذا المجال، وكذلك على الدول المتقدمة تقديم المساعدة للدول النامية على أساس المسؤولية المشتركة ولكن المتباينة. نعم، إن التأثيرات المناخية قد أصبحت تأثيراتها واضحة المعالم، وبالتالي يستدعي التنسيق والتعاون الدولي من أجل مجابهة على كوكبنا الأرض. وبالتالي فإن التعاون الدولي من شأنه أن يجعل أو التخفيف من هذه التداعيات، وكذلك إعداد المدن لمجابهة هذه التحديات. وبالتالي فإن الدعم المالي والتكنولوجي التي وعدت به الدول المتقدمة لا بد أن يتم على أرض الواقع. ولعل المؤتمر القادم لمؤتمر الأطراف للتغير المناخ تكون فرصة سانحة لبذل مزيد من الجهد والالتزام الحقيقي للدول المتقدمة بتعهداتها، وأن يتم ترجمة ذلك على أرض الواقع. وفي الختام أجدد شكري وتقديري للجميع والتمني للشعب المصري الشقيق المزيد
you want to add
والتقدم
something, or
والازدهار
Dr. Wael can
تحت
do it, or
القيادة الحاكمة
1 minute.
والراشدة لفخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Thank you so much, Dr. Jaballa. World Cities Day is an important global event, and around 50 events today are being held in countries across the whole world, including Mexico, India, the United States of America, the Netherlands, Brazil, Kenya, Bolivia, Cambodia, Ghana, China, and also Indonesia. We're really delighted to be able to link up live to one of the most ambitious events taking place today at the amazing Expo 2020 Dubai. World Cities Day at the Expo consists of 3 dynamic events.
In the coming period
to
for
hear
our
more,
city
we're
is
being
related
joined
to
online
many things
by Professor Yusuf Diab, who is
in our
at the
dialogue
event,
about the
and
informal settlements.
also he is the
It's something
scientific director
growing in
of the
many
Paris
countries,
School
and it's
of
managed
Engineers.
very well in countries like Morocco, like Tunisia. But also the problem of demography in our cities. Our cities are attractive, so we are going to face this problem again and again. And also the resilience concept has to be discussed, to be adapted to our cities. From my point of view, from my research, it can begin. It has 3 components: the preparation of the crisis. And today we talked a lot about the crisis management. It was mentioned by the mayor of Tyre. And then the 3rd phase, and it is very important, the recovery. And the recovery is also the concept of UNDRR about building back better is crucial. And it concerns all the components of the city. It concerns the infrastructure, it concerns the networks, and it concerns the city management globally. And I think this is something that we can build on, and the guideline about green recovery is a part of this approach. And maybe, Sujit, you can react on this because you are the specialist of Build Back Better.
Thank you, Dr. Yusuf. Build Back Better is definitely a concept we have been really pursuing with governments and cities. And I must say that in this region, the opportunity of also having number of countries into recovery and reconstruction is also, it provides a
hello, Dubai. Can you hear me? Dr. Yusuf, can you hear me?
To really introduce the issues of resilience, and this is, this is a must. This is a must because the billions of dollars going into right now into reconstruction, if they're not done well, we are going to create a huge stock of risk or exposure of these infrastructures, which cannot be in the future period. It will just increase the stock of risk, and which it will be extremely difficult to then be, to really reduce the risk and suffering what we have been pursuing. So it is really imperative that it is being considered from now while the planning for reconstruction and recovery is happening. And this is something I must also take this opportunity to say that this cannot be done alone by one city or 2 cities. There has to be an approach where we join hand or we learn from each other. There are cities who have gone through these processes of recovery, this process of doing, bringing resilience to the cities. And there has to be a culture of learning from each other. And this is what essentially we are trying to achieve through the Making Cities Resilient, that we create a culture of exchange of information, exchange of knowledge and know-how and technical expertise. I mean, I must say that Dubai is a city which has become a role model city, and they have also established a resilience hub. And what does that mean is that essentially they're able to support other cities in the journey of resilience and provide this technical knowledge. It's not just Dubai, but through the Resilience Hub, there could be a number of technical expert organizations globally can be made available to cities to really tap into and learn from each other and pursue resilience in their cities. So I think there are a lot of opportunities which need to be known and which need to be sort of channeled to our cities so that they can do it effectively.
Thank you very
Dr.
much.
Diab,
And I think now the connection with Luxor is ready.
Yes, Doctor, good morning to you. And I really welcome you and your dear guests. It seems that you're wrapping up the prestigious event that you're now, right now at the day. You have 3 dynamic events at Expo. Would you tell us, Dr. Diab, more about the highlights of the day? Especially, I'm glad that you've been tackling more concerning the continuation of a sense of communication. So here is a link and communication between Luxor, Egypt and Dubai Expo. Dr. Diab, good day.
Yes, thank you. Maybe we'll begin with Dr. Wael, who is going to present some conclusion, and I'll add a few things after that. Let's go do it this way.
Sure.
Thank you so much. The 2 sessions, actually, they talked about the guidelines, frameworks, and also some experiences from a number of cities. I think the guidelines has come timely. It's a good guideline to start with, but it has to start with different levels, starting from the national authorities or national government, going down up to the community, because the national government has a role to work on and develop legislations and laws to encourage the application of green buildings and green standards and climate change resilience of the cities and communities. So this framework or this guidelines is a lively document, will be changed, developed further upon practice and practices coming back from the countries and lessons learned. So knowledge management and sharing information and success stories is very important to share among different actors in the region. This guidelines is meant for MENA region, but it's also applicable for other contexts in the world.
Thank you very much. I'll add 2 things about our 2 special panels of today. The first one was dedicated to the innovations. We have 2 very relevant experiences about construction and demolition waste management in Lebanon. It was very interesting, and it's a very important pilot, and it can be scaled up to other cities, to other countries. And it was mentioned by Her Excellency, the Mayor of Tunis, about this issue, that it's something that can be transferred. And the second session was dedicated to what is the process for decision-making for integrating climate change issues in public municipal policies. And the dialogue we had with 3 mayors, we have 3 mayors here. It was very interesting because the size of the cities are different. The problems are from the, we can see, but we can see convergences in many issues. For example, about the mobility and the role of public transportation in cities is something to be considered in a serious way in Tyre, in Baghdad, and in Tunisia. The initiatives are different because the size of the cities are different, and the decision process is very important in each city and has to accept the national policies. The national policies in Iraq is very different comparing to Lebanon, where there's no national public policy at this time. So all these elements are...
that was part of what is taking place at Amazing Expo 2020 Dubai, where we've been joined online by Professor Yusuf Diab and his guests at this important event, mainly focusing on strengthening a green and resilient urban recovery in the Middle East and North Africa region. And we have heard from him, and it was great that we exchanged this fruitful discussion between Luxor and Dubai. So in the afternoon, actually, we'll be having 4 exciting roundtables on different related topics to the theme, including building resilience for the urban poor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dr. Yusuf. For the urban poor, and also the outcomes for the Innovate for Cities conference held earlier this month, achieving a green recovery from COVID and also challenges and opportunities for climate change in the Arab region. So I do hope we can facilitate an exchange of ideas between our events here in Luxor and Dubai, as we have heard. Now, one of the biggest contributors to the greenhouse gases in transport, particularly in private cars, will be hearing from the UN Special Envoy for Road Safety, Mr. John Todd.
Excellencies, ladies, gentlemen, dear Maimouna Sharif, dear Ahmed Aboulgate, it is my pleasure to join you today for World Cities Days and to celebrate the success of Urban October. Cities are dynamic spaces that offer a multitude of opportunities, access to education, health services, jobs, and mobility, among others. They represent the promise to leave no one behind under many of our UN Sustainable Development Goals. With more city inhabitants, we have also seen the growth of private vehicle fleet. This is often without adequate infrastructure, regulations, and safety culture to manage them. 1.4 million people die as traffic victims each year as pedestrian, drivers, cyclists, and motorcyclists. Half of these deaths and injuries are estimated to occur in urban areas, majority in low and middle-income countries. Road injuries are the #1 killer of young people. We must do better to reach our 2030 target on sustainable cities. In particular, investment in public transport are also investment in road safety and in more sustainable means of transport. Some solutions are highlighted in the global plan for the second UN Decade of Action for Road Safety, which was launched a few days ago. I encourage city leaders to consider road safety as a condition for livable cities. Thank you for your commitment and look forward to seeing you at the 2022 high-level meeting on road safety and the preparatory meeting on the 3rd December. I thank you for all what you will do.
Your Excellency, Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli, Excellencies, colleagues and friends, dear participants in Luxor and online. Cities are economic powerhouses, places of social interaction and fora that enable us to exchange ideas. Cities, however, are also the places where some of our biggest challenges manifest themselves. In this urban age, cities are becoming increasingly aware of their responsibilities as well as their capacities to play their part in addressing issues like poverty, segregation, and climate change adaptation. Many cities in the European Union aim to take the lead by setting ambitious targets and by experimenting with innovative approaches that can be shared across borders. Given the complexities of the challenges facing us, we need to explore the opportunities for cross-border collaboration. I'm therefore grateful for the opportunity to speak today on behalf of the European Union on World Cities Day 2021. This year's theme is adapting cities to climate resilience. This is a key topic for the European Union as the impact of climate change has a global effect in Europe, in Egypt, and elsewhere. Throughout the last 2 months, we at the European Union have been making climate diplomacy events worldwide to spread awareness. The European Union and Egypt are cooperating closely on these issues, and indeed there is an urgency to combine our forces and jointly act to stop the global warming and counter climate change. Urban and community development is vital in this respect and has become a center point of EU cooperation. Our support to urban and community development in Egypt is responding to some of the main challenges Egypt is facing. In close cooperation and partnership with the authorities, it allows us to achieve tangible results, such as reduction of greenhouse gas emissions through direct support to industry, development of waste treatment infrastructures, and promotion of good practices through awareness raising among the youth and local communities. Do we think that this is enough? To achieve impact results, we need to join our forces worldwide in the fight against climate change. The European Commission has proposed a plan to cut the greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by the year 2030. This sets Europe on a path to becoming climate neutral by 2050. Many countries have similar plans. For instance, Egypt's Vision 2030 outlines the main policy references for sustainable growth and climate resilience. Cities play an important role in the implementation of these priorities. There is no better platform than this one to discuss climate action and join our forces. The implementation of the action plans will need investments and a joint vision on how to create sustainable financing to realize our common objectives. The European Union lauds Egypt's proactive role on climate issues, both nationally and internationally. Events like the ones we're having today and the COP26 and COP27 that will be held in Egypt demonstrate a great dedication to commit to climate action. I take this occasion to thank the Egyptian authorities and particularly the Ministry of Local Development for the excellent cooperation, and I'm certain we will continue to be united for climate. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Ambassador Berger, for this contribution, fruitful contribution. We've heard many online fruitful messages and important thoughts today. Now we heard also a few moments ago from Dubai Expo, but did you know that the World Cities Day is a legacy of Expo 2010 that was held in Shanghai, China, and that China has continued to be a strong partner for World Cities Day? Well, now we'll have a video from China's Minister for Housing and Urban Rural Development, His Excellency, Mr. Wang Mengwei.
尊敬的谢里夫执行主任，各位同事、各位嘉宾、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家好。今天2021年世界城市日中国主场活动在美丽的黄浦江畔隆重开幕。与此同时，世界城市日全球主场活动也在历史悠久的埃及卢克索拉开序幕。在此，我谨代表中国住房和城乡建设部，对世界城市日主场活动的召开表示热烈的祝贺，对线上线下参加活动的所有嘉宾和朋友们表示热烈的欢迎，并致以诚挚的问候和美好的祝愿。今年世界城市日的主题是应对气候变化，建设韧性城市。应对气候变化挑战，既是加强生态文明建设、建设美丽中国的内在需要，也是推动构建人类命运共同体的责任担当。中国政府高度重视并积极参加应对气候变化行动，生态文明建设从认识到实践都发生了历史性、转折性、全局性变化。2020年9月，习近平主席在第75届联合国大会一般性辩论上宣布，中国将力争2030年前实现碳达峰，2060年前实现碳中和，充分展现了中国为全球应对气候变化做出更大贡献的责任担当。城市承载了全球超过1半以上的人口，是人类的美好家园，是实现碳达峰、碳中和的重要领域，是应对气候变化的主要战场。2020年，中国常住人口城镇化率达到63.89%。近年来，中国致力于推动城市绿色低碳发展，建立实施城市体检评估机制，大力推进城市生态修复和功能完善，持续推动建筑节能和城镇减排，加快建造方式绿色化转型，城市人居环境显著改善，承载力、宜居性和 和包容度不断提升。当前，应对气候变化处于关键时期，城市可持续发展面临的形势愈加严峻，迫切需要将各方共识转变为具体的行动。我们将在习近平生态文明思想的引领下，进一步坚定决心，加大力度，践行绿水青山就是金山银山的理念，以绿色低碳发展为路径，系统增强城市安全韧性，积极应对和防范化解气候变化带来的风险挑战，推动城市绿色安全可持续发展。第一，推动城市开发建设方式转型，对标我国碳达峰、碳中和目标，加快转变大量建设、大量消耗、大量排放的建设方式，促进城市开发建设方式从粗放扩张走向内涵集约，从大规模增量建设转向存量体制改造和增量结构调整并重，推动经济社会发展全面绿色转型。第二，推动韧性城市建设，系统化全域推进海绵城市建设，构建连续完整的城市生态基础设施体系，实施城市生态修复和功能完善工程，加快补齐基础设施和公共服务设施短板，构建智能化城市运行管理服务平台，完善城市运行管理机制，提升城市有效应对自然灾害、安全事故、公共卫生事件等风险能力。第三，推动绿色建造，完善智能建造标准体系，推动智能建造与新型建筑工业化协同发展，推广钢结构装配式等新型建造方式，推进工程建设全过程绿色建造，推进既有建筑绿色低碳改造，加快发展低能耗绿色建筑。女士们、先生们、朋友们，习近平主席在第76届联合国大会一般性辩论上发表重要讲话，提出了全球发展倡议，为实现共同可持续发展，构建全球发展命运共同体，开辟光明前景。应对气候变化和绿色发展是倡议的重要合作领域。我们愿在全球发展倡议下，充分发挥联合国作用，发挥人居署专业优势，提高包括共建“一带一路”国家在内的广大发展中国家城市应对气候变化、实现绿色发展的能力，共同完善全球人居环境治理，推动人居领域可持续发展。中国坚定维护真正的多边主义，支持人居署在国际人居事务中发挥更重要的作用。上海是中国共产党的诞生地，100年来，上海见证了中国共产党和中国发展波澜壮阔的历史进程，并不断创造着自身发展的奇迹，已经成为一座经济繁荣、富有活力、安全有序、人民生活幸福的国际化大都市。2020年，住房和城乡建设部和上海市签署了共建超大城市精细化建设和治理中国典范合作框架协议。我部与上海市将坚持人民城市人民建、人民城市为人民的重要理念，以世界城市日为平台，共同推动城市绿色低碳发展，探索创新应对气候变化的路径和方法，为世界超大城市精细化建设和治理提供中国经验， 女士们、先生们、朋友们，当今世界正经历100年未有之大变局，气候变化对全球城市持续安全发展带来了新的挑战。我们愿同世界各国深入探讨交流，积极应对气候变化，推动城市绿色低碳发展的实践经验和创新措施，携手努力，扎实行动，共同建设清洁、美丽、安全、宜居的城市家园。谢谢大家。
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Wang Mangui, for your contribution. Every year, China chooses a city for its own national observance of World Cities Day. This year, the event took place in Shanghai and just closed an hour ago. Here is a video statement by the Party Secretary of Shanghai Municipal Commission of CPC, Mr. Li Qiang.
尊敬的谢立夫执行主委，尊敬的各位来宾、女士们、先生们、朋友们，大家好。首先，我谨代表中共上海市委、市人民政府，对所有线上线下出席我们上海这次活动的各位嘉宾表示热烈的欢迎。对国家住建部、对联合国人居所和所有海内外各位朋友一直来给予上海发展关心、支持和帮助，表示衷心的感谢。世界城市日发轫于2010年上海世界博览会，在中国政府的倡导下，2013年联合国把每年的10月31号确定为世界城市日。城市让生活更美好，是上海世博会奏响的主题。这句广为流传的话语，既揭示了城市发展的目的，又道出了深处城市人们的心愿。正如亚里士多德所说的，人们来到城市是为了生活，人们留在这个城市是为了更好的生活。当今世界已经迈入城市时代，全球约有56%的人生活工作在城市里。但世界城市发展过程当中，我们确实也遭遇到一系列严重的问题，产生了交通拥堵、环境污染、住房紧张、贫富分化等等各式各样的城市病。有的时候，城市生活也让人感到烦恼。我自己曾经在几十万人口的城市和几百万人口的城市工作生活过，现在又在上海这样一个几千万人口的城市工作生活，总的感觉城市的规模不一样，能级不一样，特性更不一样。上海作为一个超大城市，面积虽然不大，只有6300多平方公里，但是常住人口超过了2400多万。我们去年经济总量已经达到3.87万亿人民币，是中国最大的经济中心城市。上海各类要素高度集聚，各种流量相互交织。比如我们的高层建筑，上海是全世界、全球最多的城市之一。现在据我们不完全统计，已经超过6万多栋。每天运行的机动车超过了600万辆，每天的在上海的快递包裹超过了900多万个。轨道交通，我们现在日均的客流量 都在1000万人次以上。像这样的数据，我们还可以举出一大串。超大城市确实是一个复杂的巨系统，超大城市的发展和治理也是一个世界性的难题。最近几年来，我们按照习近平主席和中央政府的定位要求，上海在建设国际经济、金融、贸易、航运和科技创新等5个中心的同时，我们也主力打造韧性城市，加快推进城市治理现代化。我们在许多方面进行了积极的、有益的探索。这当中，我有2点体会尤为深刻：一是把人作为城市的核心，一切围绕人的需求展开。我们提出，在上海就是要人人都有人生出彩的机会，人人都能有序参与治理，人人都能享有品质生活，人人都能切身感受温度，人人都能拥有归属认同，并努力把这一美好愿景化为现实图景。比如，随着人们物质生活条件的改善，大家对城市公共空间、生态环境有着更高的期待。我们坚持把最好的资源留给市民，下大力气实施了上海黄浦江、苏州河一江一河的贯通工程，拆除围栏、改善水质、开放校园、增添设施，使之成为市民游乐休憩的公共空间。同时，我们今年又开始实施了千座公园计划，在花园当中建城市，让人民共享诗意栖居。第2点体会是把城市作为生命体。我们感到城市不仅仅是一个物质空间，而且是一个有机体、生命体。我们必须善待城市，敬畏城市，否则城市也会像人一样生病，也会失调、失序、失衡。这几年，我们逐步探索建立了城市生命体征指标体系，形成了包括气象、交通、安全、城市保障、环境、人口和疫情、民意、社会稳定等等8大类510多个方面的1万多个指标。每一个指标，我们的城市都能进行实时的监测，这样就像对人的健康管理一样，可以及时发现城市的病灶，找到病因，对症施治。这套系统也就是上海正在全力打造的城市运行一网统管，已经在全市这几年的疫情防控、防台防汛、大客流管理等方面发挥了不可替代的作用。当今世界，气候变化是全人类的共同威胁，动辄100年一遇、1000年一遇的降水，持续肆虐的森林大火，极端的严寒天气，冰川融化与海平面上升等等问题，对城市可持续发展的构成了严峻的挑战。本届世界城市日以应对气候变化、建设韧性城市作为主题，十分契合当前城市发展的需要，对上海这样一个超大城市更是具有很强的现实针对性。在气候变化和各类不确定性的冲击下，超大城市尤其有它脆弱性，尤其需要加强城市的韧性建设。 我们期待倾听来自全球不同国家、不同城市、不同领域的不同专家、实践者独到的见解和经验的分享，预祝本次世界城市日活动圆满成功。谢谢大家。
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Li Qiang, for those thoughtful statements. He's the party secretary of Shanghai Municipal Commission of CPC. And as we know that every year at the World Cities Day, Global Observance, we are launching the latest edition of the Shanghai Manual. This also just took place at the National Observance in China, along with the launch of the Shanghai Adapted Index. Both were launched by the mayor of Shanghai, Mr. Gong Zheng. And we will first hear from the mayor, and then we'll see a video with more details. Let's follow.
女士们、先生们、朋友们，在联合国人居署、中华人民共和国住房和城乡建设部与上海市人民政府的共同努力下，旨在科学评估全球城市可持续发展水平的上海指数，已经形成综合的指数的指标的体系框架。在中华人民共和国住房和城乡建设部的大力支持下，联合国人居署、国际展览局、上海市人民政府精诚合作，主题为“城市可持续发展，以绿色低碳推动包容性增长”的2021年版上海手册完成了修编工作。这里我宣布，上海指数综合指标体系框架2021年版上海手册正式发布。谢谢大家。
In order to meet the challenges of global urban sustainable development, the United Nations successively issued the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development and the new Urban Agenda in 2015 and 2016. UN Habitat and China worked together against the Global Urban Monitoring Framework Shanghai Adapted Index and the Shanghai Manual, a guide for sustainable urban development in the 21st century, to promote the implementation of the Sustainable Development Agenda. Shanghai Adapted Index is based on the 5x4 framework of UN Habitat Global Urban Monitoring Framework in economy, society, culture, environment, and governance dimensions. On the basis of the concept, more than 40 indicators in the fields of urban transportation, medical treatment, education, infrastructure, employment, energy, domestic waste, and safety are proposed to help the urban integrated assessment and monitoring of the process, positioning and development priorities of sustainable development, and promote the concepts of people-oriented urban sustainable development. Shanghai Manual is an updated international document jointly revised by Shanghai Municipal Government, UN Habitat, and the Bureau of International Exhibitions. Since 2011, it has been updated for 6 times, sharing excellent practices of global urban sustainable development with 158 cases from 39 countries around the world.
Joined live online by the representative from the SUR Corporation of Social Studies and Education of Chile, Ms. Olga Segovia.
Hola.
Ms. Segovia, good morning to you. Please go ahead.
Good morning. Buenos días desde Chile. Es un gusto para mí estar en estos momentos. Si me escuchan. Hola.
Yes, good morning. Please go ahead.
Sí, ¿me escuchas bien? ¿Es okay?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Buenos días. Bueno, un saludo desde la Red Mujer y Hábitat de América Latina, esta red constituida por organizaciones de mujeres profesionales, activistas comprometidas con la promoción de los derechos de las mujeres y con una mayor equidad de género en el campo del hábitat, el territorio y la ciudad. Nos encontramos en un momento de crisis en el que se han profundizado las desigualdades, entre otras las de género, en un escenario urbano que demanda respuestas urgentes y sustentables que aborden los graves efectos del cambio climático y cuiden el medio ambiente. Las organizaciones de mujeres hemos estado hace años avanzando en nuestros objetivos hacia conformar políticas, programas que generar conocimientos desde una perspectiva de género en relación al acceso a la tierra, a la vivienda, a los servicios urbanos, a una mayor seguridad en la ciudad y el desarrollo y gestión local, poniendo énfasis en la situación de pobreza y desigualdad que afecta a las mujeres. Hemos incidido en el diseño e implementación de públicas con equidad de género a través de la sensibilización y fortalecimiento de capacidades en instituciones de gobierno, centros de educación y organizaciones. Hello, ¿hay algún problema? ¿No? ¿Es okay? Y entre nuestro trabajo.
In order to amplify its messages on sustainable urbanization, the UN Habitat works with the regional goodwill ambassadors. And is Olga here?
Yes.
You, Miss Olga. Yes, please go ahead. There was something wrong with the connection. Please go ahead. We can hear you now. Hello.
Momento. ¿Puedo seguir? I come again?
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Yes. Bueno, quisiera cerrar esta intervención, digamos, llamando que nuestro trabajo está muy importante, muy concentrado en estos últimos tiempos respecto al cambio climático y la reducción de desastres, a la resiliencia comunitaria. Hemos trabajado en garantizar el acceso a servicios básicos, gestionar los ecosistemas y sistemas urbanos y hacer que los medios de vida sean sostenibles y resilientes. Hemos promovido la paridad de género, fomentando la participación y representación de la mujer en su diversidad en las negociaciones y tomas de decisiones a nivel subnacional, nacional y relacionadas con el cambio climático. Grupos de mujeres líderes de base han desarrollado herramientas para reducir su vulnerabilidad a las amenazas climáticas y a los desastres, entre otros, cultivos resilientes al clima, formas adaptativas de gestión del agua y el saneamiento para aumentar el suministro y reducir los problemas de salud, conservación de la tierra y el medio ambiente, protección forestal, costera y del suelo. Esas son algunas de las acciones que hemos realizado en torno a estas temáticas y yo quisiera finalizar y haciendo un llamado realmente a implementar medidas concretas, efectivas, para lograr una mitigación de los graves problemas que hemos desarrollado y que necesitamos enfrentar de una manera con mayor igualdad y con mayor sustentabilidad. Muchas gracias y un saludo a todos.
Grazie, Olga. Thank you so much. Well, as you may know, that the UN Summit on Climate Change, known as COP26, opens today in Glasgow, Scotland. Joining us from there is the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, Ms. Nisreen Al-Saim. Ms. Al-Saim, over to you. We're really pleased as the UN Summit on Climate Change, known as COP26, opens today in Glasgow, Scotland. We'll be joined right now by the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, Ms. Nisreen Al-Saim. Ms. Al-Saim. Well, in order to amplify its messages on sustainable urbanization, the UN Habitat works with the regional Goodwill Ambassadors, and one of the most active is the Goodwill Ambassador for Arab States, Her Royal Highness Princess Lamia bint Majid Al Saud, who was appointed during the 10th World Urban Forum in Abu Dhabi back in February 2020. We'll now see a video on behalf of Her Royal Highness.
I would firstly like to take this opportunity to thank you all for attending this event in recognition of the importance of the future of cities around the world. Globally, we are seeing cities increasingly at risk from the effect of climate-related disasters. Be this rising sea level, urban flooding, landslides, devastating fire, and power sources. Cities are also growing rapidly as the result of migration, whether that is from within a country and the movement of people from rural area to urban, or international movement of people. As we look to the coming years, it is expected by 2050, almost 70% of the global population will be living in urban areas. It is imperative that across the world, governments, industries, organizations, and individuals work together to create more climate-resilient societies. One of the core visions of our chairman, His Royal Highness Prince Walid bin Talal, urged, and I quote, "Having a roof on top of our heads is a simple right that anyone should have." Today, I stand here as the Secretary General of Walid Philanthropy, a world-reaching philanthropic organization, pioneered by 10 Saudi women and supported more than 1,000 projects in over 189 countries. We collaborate with a range of philanthropic government and non-governmental organizations. Spanning over 40 years, we help developing communities through providing disaster relief, creating cultural understanding, and championing women and youth empowerment with human first and collaborative approach. I also stand here today as the UN Habitat Arab States Goodwill Ambassador in recognition of how sustainable urbanization holds the potential for new forms of social inclusion, from greater equality to new opportunities and increased access to services. It is for this reason that the Walid Philanthropy extended to tens of countries around the world. Recently, we partnered with the Saudi Development and Reconstruction Program for Yemen in collaboration with the UN Habitat to launch the Adequate Housing Project. This program aims at restoring 600,000 units for low-income households, which will contribute towards a sustainable solution for the vulnerable internally displaced person and returnees in Athens, to improve living conditions and social cohesion of the community. Finally, I wish to end by highlighting how inclusive, sustainable urban development can truly change people's life and build communities. Thank you for your time today. I look forward to further collaboration as together we work to support ambitious action in cities around the world. Have a good day.
Thank you so much, Your Royal Highness Princess Lamia bint Majid Al Saud, for this contribution. Well, 2 years ago, the World Cities Day Global Observance was held in the city of Ekaterinburg, the Russian Federation, one of the country's largest urban centers. We'll now be hearing from the current mayor of Ekaterinburg, Honorable Alexei Oldon.
Добрый день, уважаемая госпожа Шариф, уважаемые дамы и господа. Сердечно приветствую вас по случаю празднования Всемирного дня городов 2021. Всемирный день городов – это новый и молодой праздник. В этом году он отмечается в 8-й раз. Но в то же время в рамках празднования участники поднимают важные проблемы, которые связаны с урбанизацией, а также обмениваются лучшими практиками городского развития. В 2019 году Екатеринбургу выпала честь принимать Всемирный день городов. Международное мероприятие посетило порядка 100 гостей из 33 стран, от Австралии и Канады до Мексики, Филиппин и Венесуэлы. Проведение такого представительного международного мероприятия способствовало продвижению Екатеринбурга на мировой арене. В последние годы мы наглядно убедились, насколько актуальными и востребованными являются вопросы, которые связаны с изменением климата, созданием комфортной среды проживания. Последствия урбанизации и изменения климата влияют на качество жизни, экономическое и социальное развитие. Очевидно, что эффективное решение этих проблем невозможно без реального международного взаимодействия. Важно, что Всемирный день городов позволяет обмениваться профессиональными наработками, идеями по вопросам устойчивого городского развития, определять алгоритмы реагирования на чрезвычайные ситуации природного и техногенного характера. Уверен, что сегодняшнее мероприятие станет ярким и запоминающимся событием для всех участников, позволит обсудить широкий круг проблем и наметить перспективы на будущее. Желаю организаторам, участникам и гостям приятного времяпрепровождения, интересных дискуссий, новых достижений.
To announce that will be joined shortly by His Excellency, the Prime Minister of Egypt, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli. The ministers are going to arrive shortly, and His Excellency will honor our gathering by his presence. Thank you. دولة السيد رئيس مجلس الوزراء الأستاذ الدكتور مصطفى مدبولي. We're really pleased to announce that we are joined right now by His Excellency, the Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli. Excellency, an honor to have you. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor today to have His Excellency Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, Prime Minister of Egypt, joining us today on that important day for our gathering. And right now, I would like to invite the Governor of Luxor, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed Elham, to come up and make some welcoming remarks to the Prime Minister.
السيد الأستاذ الدكتور مهندس مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء، السيد اللواء محمود شعراوي وزير التنمية المحلية، السيدة ميمونة محمد شريف وكيل الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة المدير التنفيذي برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، السادة الوزراء، السادة المحافظون، الضيوف الكرام. أود في البداية أن أعرب عن عميق شكري وتقديري للقائمين المسؤولين عن برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية على اختيارهم مدينة الأقصر لاستضافة هذا الحدث الكبير، وهو يوم المدن العالمي تحت رعاية فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية. السيدات والسادة، لقد اختار هذا الحدث الكبير واحدة من أهم التحديات التي تواجه مدننا، وهو تحدي المناخ. ولعل ما ستشهدونه خلال فترة إقامتكم في الأقصر يكون مثالاً عملياً على كيفية الحفاظ على التراث الإنساني الفريد للحضارة الفرعونية، وسعي الدولة في الحفاظ على التراث وحمايته من التعديات، متمثلا في إعادة اكتشاف تاريخ الكباش واستعادته إلى هيئته الأولى. السيدات والسادة، إن مصر تقف أمام تاريخها بإجلال واحترام، وتبني المستقبل من أجل خير أبنائها، وتعمل من أجل استقرار المنطقة، وتقدم في نفس الوقت نموذجا فريدا في التنمية. ولعل تواجدكم معنا اليوم يتيح لنا فرصة تقديم صورة عما قدمته الحكومة بالتوجيه من القيادة السياسية من إنجازات حضارية حظت بتقدير منظماتكم الموقرة بل والعالم أجمع، حيث أضفنا الكثير لرصيدنا المعماري الحضاري من مدن جديدة ذكية وعاصمة إدارية جديدة، وآلاف من الطرق تمثل شرايين الاقتصادي الوطني. وأضفنا الكثير من الإنجازات ذات البعد الحضاري والتراثي والثقافي الفريد في مزيج من الحفاظ على القديم برؤية عصرية متطورة، وتأخذ في حسبانها التحدي المناخي الذي يهدد الآثار ويهدد دلتا النيل. ونعمل بوعي مع الشركاء الدوليين لحماية آثارنا ونيلنا من كل سوء. السيدات والسادة، إن لقاءنا يتمحور في تعزيز اهتمام المجتمع الدولي بالتوسع الحضري العالمي المستدام، ودفع التعاون بين البلدان والمدن لمعالجة تحديات التحضر، والمساهمة في التنمية الحضرية المستدامة في جميع أنحاء العالم، وتعزيز العمل المناخي الطموح للمدن وتحقيق حياة أفضل للمواطنين. متماشيا مع هذا السياق، سعت الدولة المصرية من خلال السنوات الأخيرة إلى تكثيف الاستثمارات العامة في البنية التحتية وتشجيع الاستثمار فضلا عن التوسع في إنشاء التجمعات الصناعية الجديدة وطرح الأراضي المرفقة، بالإضافة للأساس في تنمية المواطن في التعليم والصحة وتطوير العديد من القطاعات، الطرق والنقل ومياه الشرب والصرف الصحي والكهرباء. ولقد ظهر ذلك جليا من خلال تنفيذ مشروع المبادرة الرئاسية حياة كريمة، والتي أطلقها فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية، والذي يعد أضخم مشروع تنموي متكامل في تاريخ مصر الحديث، ويأتي تحت مظلة تنفيذ رؤية مصر 2030، والتي يكون لها عظيم الأثر في توفير حياة كريمة لما يقارب من 58 مليون مواطن يقيم في أكثر من 4500 قرية وأكثر من 35 ألف تابع بمراكز ومحافظات مصر، بتجمعات أكثر احتياجاً في الريف بهدف القضاء على الفقر متعدد الأبعاد لتوفير حياة كريمة مستدامة للمواطنين على مستوى الجمهورية. والجدير بالذكر أن الأمم المتحدة والمنظمات الدولية أشادت خلال المنتديات والمؤتمرات العالمية بالتجربة المصرية، واعتبرتها الأهم لتحسين معيشة الفئات الأكثر احتياجاً في مختلف المحافظات، واعتبرتها السد القوي في مواجهة جائحة كورونا التي ضربت اقتصاد العالم. السيدات والسادة، أرحب بكم مجدداً وأشكركم على تشريف مدينتكم الأقصر التاريخية والتي تمثل جزءاً من تراثنا الإنساني المشترك، وأشكركم على حسن استماعكم وأتمنى لكم طيب الإقامة، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the governor of Luxor, Mr. Mustafa Mohammed Elham, for those welcoming remarks. United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, has been a dedicated campaigner on the climate change issue. And despite his busy schedule, he has found time today to send us a message in order to mark the importance of the World Cities Day. The message from the Secretary General will be read right now by the UN Resident Coordinator for Egypt, Ms. Elena Panova. Thank you.
Secretary General, message on World Cities Day 2021. Cities are hubs of innovation and human ingenuity, and potential centers for transformative action to implement the Sustainable Development Goals and build a zero carbon, climate resilient, and socially just world. The theme of this year's World Cities Day, Adapting Cities for Climate Resilience, comes at a time when cities must be more resilient than ever before. They have been epicenters of the COVID-19 pandemic and are on the front lines of the climate crisis. Globally, over 1 billion people live in informal settlements, with 70% highly vulnerable to climate change. Sea level rise could put more than 800 million people in coastal cities at direct risk by 2050. Yet, just 9% of the climate finance to cities goes to adaptation and resilience. And cities in developing countries receive far less than those in developed countries. This must change. Half of all climate finance should be dedicated to adaptation. We need a people-centered and inclusive approach to planning, building, and managing cities. Resilient infrastructure, early warning systems, and financial instruments to mitigate the risks are crucial tools as cities seek to adapt and protect the lives and livelihoods of their citizens. Cities can lead the way in recovering better from the pandemic, reducing emissions at the scale and speed the world needs, and also securing a resilient future for billions. On this occasion, I would like to congratulate the government of Egypt and the Asian city of Luxor for hosting the global observance of the World Cities Day in 2021. On this day, on World Cities Day, let us renew our resolve to confront urban challenges, mitigate risks, and forge lasting solutions. Together, we can transform our cities and thereby transform our world. I thank you.
And we thank you so much, Ms. Elena Panova, the UN Resident Coordinator for Egypt. Now we'll hear from the co-chair of the UN Habitat Stakeholder Advisory Group Enterprise, who is at the University of East London, and is with us in person, Professor Siraj Said. Thank you.
Honorable Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Excellency Dr. Madbouli, Honorable Undersecretary General and Executive Director of UN Habitat, Madam Maimuna Mohammed Sharif, Your Excellencies, distinguished delegates, and my dear partners of the New Urban Agenda and the SDGs across the world. It is indeed a privilege that in such an important occasion of COP29 and World Cities Day, we have stakeholders here participating along with governments and along with UN agencies. My name is Siraj Said. I'm a professor and director of the Noon Center for Equality and Diversity at the University of East London, which has been a partner of UN Habitat, but also ranked as 2 top universities in the implementation of the SDGs independently. But I'm here in my capacity as the co-chair, along with Di Curry, of the Stakeholders Advisory Group Enterprise, SAGE, which has 16 world leaders on urban development coming together to steer the global sustainable urban agenda. And they are from the Commonwealth, the World Economic Forum, they are from UCLG, and also our colleague parliamentarian from Egypt, Sahar Attia. So top leaders. And the SAGE was started in 2019, but Madam Executive Director, in order to strengthen stakeholder coordination to advisor, and also what the Executive Director calls the co-creation and the joint implementation of the new urban agenda. So at the UN Habitat Assembly, which many of you were there, the hundreds of stakeholders got together and passed what is called a new stakeholder compact for the new urban agenda, which is now aligned with the Secretary General's new social contract, emphasizing whether it be climate change, of course, as well as housing and the localization of the SDGs. And many of you who have worked with UN Habitat would know that UN Habitat is perhaps the most inclusive and partnering organization right across. So even though SAGE, which I represent, is an advisory body, I like to bring over here the messages from the dozens, really, of stakeholders across the UN system, and particularly in UN Habitat. So we've already heard the UN youth representative. The UN Habitat UN Advisory Board would like to remind all of us here that youth action is about intergenerational equity as well as sustainability. And they are leading the challenge, and we need to support them. The UN Habitat Advisory Group on Gender Issues would like to tell us that gender equality is about women's empowerment, not only as women, as beneficiaries, but as leaders and the voices to be heard. And we're really proud, Madam Executive Director, that the Secretary General has done us proud by appointing you as a champion of gender equality across the UN system. We have the UN Constituent Group on Disability, Disabled Persons in UN Habitat, which is talking about, when we talk about climate change, let's talk about accessible cities which work for everyone. If you talk about the newly created UN Committee on Local Authorities, it's local action with local authorities, and so proud to see the mayors and the local authorities for local action taking place over here. We have the Global Land Tool Network, which has worked for the continuum of land rights within UN Habitat to see that all rights of women, of urban poor, of youth, and marginalized communities are upheld. You have the UN Habitat Professionals Forum, Innovative, Inclusive Urban Planning. You have the UN Habitat Universities Hub, which is all about data-driven, evidence-based approaches. I could go on to talk about the General Assembly of Partners. I could talk about the World Urban Campaign. I could talk about advisory groups in relation to housing, innovative finance, as well as water and sanitation, which many of you are familiar with and working with. But all of them come up with this message that this is the moment for us to seize as governments, as United Nations, and as stakeholders. It is indeed a privilege to be over here in Luxor. And I'm conveying the special message of all stakeholders that it's a personal honor to have His Excellency the Prime Minister with us. Because many of you already know that Dr. Mustafa Madbouli was already one of the world's greatest thinkers and professionals when he was invited by the UN to provide the leadership for the whole of the Arab countries. Your Excellency, you may not remember, but many years ago, you blessed us and started off with a workshop on land rights because of your commitment towards women, towards youth. And that has grown into the Arab Land Initiative, which is one of the successful programs, not only in the Arab world, but taken outside. So thank you very much. But you're not just leader of the Arab world, you're there for the world. And as you are leading the COP27 and COP26, we look for your leadership and we are there to follow. My final message from the stakeholders is that as we go to Katowice in Poland, many of the countries of the world, 20 of them have actually organized the National Urban Forum, which is an opportunity for stakeholders to get together and contribute to national urban and development policies. And this is an example in Egypt, in Luxor, but also of Spain where I'm coming from. So we, the stakeholders, would like to urge governments, many of you across the world, please have these national urban forums so that you can contribute the data, your perspectives, and the strengths to the world. So I would like to end by saying that many of us will recognize in these last few years since the executive director has taken over, we have achieved so much together, despite the challenges of whether the pandemic or the global crisis and etc. Here is an opportunity for us, as has been stated before, to stand united for climate change. So thank you, Secretary General, for creating this mandate. Thank you, Government of Egypt, for facilitating this. Thank you, Edie, and the UN Habitat team for leading us. And finally, I would like to say thank you to all the stakeholders across the world, many of whom are watching and many of them are too busy doing things, that for your sacrifices and your commitment, let this meeting send out a message that this is the moment for us now to address climate change for communities, for urban poor, and for the whole world. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Siraj Said, for your thoughtful insights. And as you may know, that the UN Summit on Climate Change, which is known as COP26, opens today in Glasgow, Scotland. And joining us from there will be the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change, Ms. Nisreen El-Saim. Ms. El-Saim will be
Thank
joining
you very
us.
much. Thank you.
Yes, hello.
Yes, I can hear you.
So kindly keep it short, please. Thank you so much. Please go ahead.
صباح الخير عليكم جميعا. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. My name is Nisreen El-Saim. I'm the chair of the UN Secretary General's Youth Advisory Group on Climate Change. Here I'm talking to you from the beautiful city of Glasgow for hosting COP26. As you may all know, in 2019, the Secretary General had the first ever Youth Climate Summit. And in the Youth Climate Summit, many of the discussions were happening about the role of young people in building their cities, making it more sustainable. More than 3 reports say that 43% of the emissions of global warming of the greenhouse gases are coming from cities. These emissions are contributing significantly to the total amount of the emissions of the CO2 and the other gases that actually contribute to the climate change. And that's why young people are so determined to make these cities more green, more sustainable, and more advanced, so we can live, develop, have education, have access to health services, have access to clean roads, clean transportation systems, and so on, yet at the same time we conserve our environment. Currently, 60% of the populations of the cities are young people. And that's why the innovative ideas, the technologies, the entrepreneurship, the leading positions coming from young people are crucial to actually make our cities more sustainable.
Thank you so much, Al-Saim, for your contribution. Thank you so much. That was really inspiring. And now will be joining us now on the line for his intervention on the role of cities and climate change as the president of the United Cities and Local Governments Network, or the UCLG, Dr. Mohammed Boudra. Yes, sir. We hear you.
Assalamu alaikum. Excellence, Monsieur le Premier ministre, Dr. Moustapha Madbouli. Excellence, Madame la directrice exécutive d'ONU Habitat, Maïmouna Mahsharif. Chers maires, dirigeants régionaux et locaux, collègues et amis. Je tiens à vous remercier pour votre invitation et pour compter sur la représentation de notre large réseau de gouvernements locaux et régionaux de par le monde CGU. Plus de 250 000 villes de toute taille et toute région mobilisées pour que les agendas du développement soient une réalité sur le terrain. Je tiens à remercier sincèrement Maïmouna Mahsharif, la directrice exécutive d'ONU Habitat, pour son soutien et ses efforts à notre collectif afin de mener à bien des agendas mondiaux. Je remercie la République arabe d'Égypte, président et gouvernement, pour l'accueil de cette journée mondiale. Je remercie Monsieur le Premier ministre, Monsieur le ministre Sharawi et tous les gouverneurs ici présents. Pour organiser cette journée mondiale des villes nous donne l'occasion de démontrer que nous, les gouvernements locaux et régionaux, sommes essentiels pour mettre en œuvre un modèle de développement lié aux droits de l'homme à travers la prestation de services publics et une politique de soins aux citoyens. Le monde a changé depuis que nous sommes tous rencontrés à Abu Dhabi l'an dernier. Le monde ne sera plus comme avant. Et nous portons tous la responsabilité d'un changement profond de modèle pour atteindre les objectifs dont nous rêvons et pour assurer une reprise juste, durable et équitable. Nous devons mettre en œuvre une transition écologique qui protégera notre planète. La bonne gouvernance multiniveau et la prestation de services par les gouvernements locaux est la clé. Le rôle joué par l'Assemblée mondiale des gouvernements locaux, CGLU, reconnu formellement dans le nouvel agenda urbain, doit nous permettre d'atteindre les objectifs universels. Et quand je dis les atteindre dans leur ensemble, je veux dire bien qu'ils ne peuvent pas être atteints individuellement, que nous devons tirer parti du potentiel accéléré du nouvel agenda urbain pour atteindre les ODD. Et ces ODD seront un levier pour mettre en œuvre le cadre de Sendai et l'accord de Paris. Chers collègues, vers la revue du nouvel agenda urbain Quito +5 l'année prochaine, je vous invite à travailler main dans la main avec les villes et pays de vos nations, les exemples de gouvernements locaux et régionaux qui travaillent, par exemple, à intégrer le droit à la ville, le droit au logement, les politiques de développement durable dont leurs projets sont nombreux. Et c'est pourquoi nous devons continuer à affirmer que nous sommes des partenaires essentiels pour la transformation de notre planète. La crise qui n'est toujours pas terminée nous a renforcés dans cette conviction d'aller plus loin dans nos partenariats structurels. Il est nécessaire de continuer à élever la voix en se souvenant que c'est nous qui nous garantissons des espaces où tous les acteurs ont une voix, que nous pourrons renforcer un mouvement local mondial pour atteindre les agendas. Uniquement grâce à l'action transformatrice de toutes les sphères de gouvernement, de la société civile et la recherche que nous pourrons faire face à la crise, à l'urgence climatique et localiser l'action par le climat, en tant que mouvement qui recherche l'égalité et l'éradication de la pauvreté, nous considérons déjà nos villes comme des espaces accessibles de manière égale. Nous avons déjà à l'esprit que le dialogue entre les générations est la clé de la paix. Nous travaillons déjà pour protéger et favoriser la démocratie locale en tant que gardien des espoirs de nos communautés. pour mener à bien la transformation dont nous avons besoin. Nous savons qu'il est nécessaire de protéger la prestation des services publics, d'identifier et de surmonter les obstacles techniques pour parvenir au développement durable au niveau local et d'assurer une localisation efficace et accélérée des agendas mondiaux. La crise a démontré la cruciale nécessité de protéger nos services dans les villes et leurs employés qui en garantissent le bon fonctionnement. Nous savons que la localisation est évidemment un enjeu politique, que ce n'est que par la volonté politique de toutes les parties concernées que nous pourrons appliquer les objectifs mondiaux, que nous pourrons assurer un financement adéquat pour les mener à bien et que nous pourrons transformer nos villes et territoires pour ne laisser personne et aucune ville à côté. Nous avons la volonté et espérons participer plus activement à la gouvernance d'habitat pour atteindre les objectifs ambitieux que nous nous sommes fixés. C'est pourquoi nous demandons aux gouvernements nationaux et au système international de se joindre à nous pour faire en sorte de placer les soins, les services publics et les citoyens au cœur des politiques publiques et de développement. Nous nous engageons en tant qu'Assemblée mondiale à montrer que ce sont les gouvernements locaux et régionaux et leur travail pour fournir des services de base à nos communautés afin d'unir la dimension culturelle dans le développement durable. Et nous nous engageons également à consolider cette Assemblée en tant que mécanisme par lequel nous contribuons aux agendas. Chers collègues, permettez-moi de terminer en vous remerciant pour votre invitation, pour tous les partenariats structurels avec notre mouvement. Vous pouvez compter sur la Global Task Force et ses élus à continuer à défendre la mise en œuvre des agendas mondiaux depuis la base et avec l'ensemble du réseau. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much for your important insights, Dr. Boudra. Well, next we have a video from the Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, who will elaborate on how authorities can build back better and even greener after the COVID pandemic.
Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, the COVID-19 pandemic has presented cities with unprecedented challenges, not only from the virus itself, but in terms of major disruption to lives and livelihoods. City after city, we have witnessed the leadership of mayors in responding to the emergency itself and in coping with this evolving crisis. The allocation of investments and the policy decisions that will guide both short and long-term recovery will shape the way we live for years to come. One of the greatest challenges cities face is in the areas of environmental degradation and climate change, which will be discussed at COP26. Notably, one of the key recommendations of the COP26 special report on health and climate change is to reimagine urban environments, transport, and mobility. Building healthy, livable cities is also one of the key prescriptions of WHO's manifesto for a healthy recovery, which includes policies for water and sanitation, housing, land use, and energy. These kinds of green recovery measures are designed to build more resilient and community-centric urban centers, while also enhancing economic activity and bringing significant health benefits. This World Cities Day, we reflect not only on our challenge, but also on our opportunities to build back better. We encourage mayors, local and national authorities, and all urban leaders to put equity, health, and well-being and climate action at the center of their efforts. I thank you.
Thank you so much. That was the video on behalf of the Director General of the World Health Organization, WHO, Dr. Tedros Adhanom. I'm honored to welcome our next guest who has traveled a long way to be with us today, the Vice Minister for Multilateral Affairs and Human Rights in Mexico, Honorable Marta Delgado, who is also the President of the UN Habitat Assembly. We are most honored to have you here with us today, Your Excellency. Thank you.
Thank you very much, His Excellency Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, President of the Arab Republic of Egypt, Mr. Mustafa Mohamed Ahmad, Governor of Luxor, my dear Maimouna Sharif, Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, and all distinguished participants of the Global Observance World Cities Day 2021. For me, it is a great honor to be part of this open ceremony, especially in person. This has been very difficult for the multilateral affairs and the multilateral meetings be organized in video conference the last couple of years. So one of the most important events on urban matters, which so wisely crowns the end of October, the Urban Month, brings us together so many talented actors who continuously work to strengthen and expand the spaces for action in sustainable urbanization projects. Holding this forum enables the achievement of timely diagnosis of the most urgent needs at the urban level, and also promote active avenues for action that are improving the urban reality in each of our communities. Human settlements in many nations face very similar challenges stemming from the absence of public policies from sustainable planning, as well as unequal access to basic services. So in this sense, linking ideas is very important to produce synergies that become concrete actions in several countries. In mine, in Mexico, we are committed to planning and implementing best practices. And also we are very open to learn from other experiences. In this regard, we joined forces with UN Habitat. And as a result, 4 key urban objectives have been established in Mexico. First, the reduction of spatial inequality and poverty in communities in continuous regions between rural and urban areas. Second, greater shared prosperity of cities and regions, which are important objectives in many countries and megalopolis. Strengthening of climate action, which soon is going to be discussed at COP26 in Glasgow, for the improvement of urban environments, and for effective prevention of urban crises, and to be able to offer anticipated responses to them. These characteristics represent great challenges for local governments, but also valuable opportunities related to the commitments of all countries to sustainable development. Urban action, it is of great importance for establishing positive and lasting progress. And within the framework with the 2030 Agenda, Sustainable Development Goal 11 is the only objective that focuses exclusively on improvement of urban settlements through 10 specific interconnected goals, and their fulfillment also depends or rely on the progress of other SDGs. So this transversal approach reflects the great need to cities for being linked to the agenda and act as decisive actors for the fulfillment in that global objectives. The implementation of the new urban agenda must be promoted with the accompaniment of key actors in urban development, and it is proposed to improve the territorial organization of cities from gender equity perspective that recognize the crucial aspect of rights of women in the urban development agenda. Consequently, we have the Regional Action Plan 2016-2036, which promotes the new urban agenda implementation with the adoption of sustainable urban policies and the recognition of the city as a public good. As we have learned, during the pandemic, cities had to be adapted to social distance, to many other different circumstances that government faced in, for example, waste management, water supply, safe public transportation. All that system were exacerbated by the pandemics, and that experience is very useful also to understand the many challenges that we need to do for adapting cities for climate resilience. Managing urban spaces with the comprehensive and technological approach that goes to beyond traditional administrative limits and promoting smart, inclusive cities, having a better articulation with urban planning and land use will be paramount for health and economic recovery, but also to face the climate change effects at the urban level. Finally, in this context, the expertise and extraordinary work of the UN Habitat will be paramount to provide support and guidance to the cities of the world. And I want to thank and recognize the leadership of Idi Maimouna Morsharif. And I also want to take this opportunity to thank the Habitat staff. And of course, thank you, the Arab Republic of Egypt and His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi for hosting this relevant event, which gathered us in person after a long time of confinement and video conference. On behalf of the Presidency of UN Habitat Assembly, I appreciate your valuable time and attention. Thank you.
Honorable Martha Delgado, very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Now we'll hear from the Executive Director of the United Nations Human Settlements Program, known as UN Habitat, the co-host of the Global Observance of World Cities Day here in Luxor, Madame Maimouna Mohammed Sharif. Welcome, Executive Director. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. Your Excellency, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, the Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt. Your Excellency, Madam Martha Delgado, President of the United Nations Habitat Assembly. Honorable Ministers, Honorable Governors and Mayors, Excellencies, colleagues, friends, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am very delighted to be here in this historic city of Luxor to celebrate the first global observance of World Cities Day in the Middle East and the North Africa region. I would like to thank the government of the Republic of Egypt and the city of Luxor for hosting this very important event. I also would like to take this opportunity to offer my heartfelt congratulations to the government of the Republic of Egypt and the Ministry of Housing and Urban Communities for winning the UN Habitat Scroll of Honor this year. Celebrating the global observance here in Luxor is a timely reminder of the extraordinary achievement of human civilization. It is also a reminder of the fragility of our bond with the nature world. Today, humankind stands on the knife edge as the climate crisis threatens our every future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, our planet Earth is burning. Ice cap is melting. Sea level is rising. Coastal cities are being flooded. Forests are on fire. Food production is at risk, which leads to hunger. Our cities continue to sprawl without proper or simply lack of planning and design, which causes shortage of affordable housing, lack of clean water, lack of public transportation, congestion and pollution. And we need to remind ourselves constantly that half of the world population is still offline without internet. The inequalities between cities, within towns and within towns continues to worsen. The gap between urban and rural areas are still widening. Life in villages and communities is at stake. The vulnerable are the most affected, even though they are the least cause of climate change in cities. Most of the world's scientists now recognize the climate crisis is a man-made. Our modern conveniences on very way of life and also our way of life is based on our dependence on burning of fossil fuel. Our industries and singular pursuit of material wealth continues to lead us away from living within the limits of the natural world. We must also acknowledge that cities contribute to 70% of the greenhouse gases in the atmosphere. And yet, 65% of the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, are attributable to cities and communities. We cannot solve the climate crisis without a whole society approach. A whole society approach can only happen if we get our urbanization right, if we get our cities right. The General Assembly in 2016 endorsed the new urban agenda, which is complementary to the Paris Agreement. And the new urban agenda is a blueprint for local action agreed by all 193 member states. Today, half a decade later, we see how important the new urban agenda is to enable multilateral actions. Whatever is agreed at COP26 in Glasgow, it will end up to cities and communities working in tandem with national government to implement the actions. The sad reality is that even if we reach net zero emission soon, global warming will continue for some decades to come. That means we must take action now to adapt to the extreme climate event by protecting and preserving our planets, our villages, our towns, our cities, where over half of the global population live. Therefore, the theme of the World Cities Day, Adapting Cities for Climate Resilience, is a call to action. And I hope to take recommendation from the roundtable session to COP26. And I hope member states will also meet their commitments to prepare their declared action as we proceed from Urban October toward the World Urban Forum in June 2022 in Katowice, Poland. Prepare and implement. Ladies and gentlemen, in this noble mission, let us not forget the urban poor. Our fellow citizens often living in informal settlements, in precarious places prone to landslide or floods. And currently 1 billion people live in slums with few basic services or access to emergency support in times of crisis. They live without the protection that the rest of us enjoy from the formal system of law and regulations. Adapting cities for climate resilience means creating opportunities for an all of society approach to tackle extreme climate events. Adaptation responses include nature-based solutions such as protecting or restoring mangrove forests which protect against storm surge, rehabilitation of wetlands and rivers to manage floods and drought, urban tree planting, and microforests and rooftop gardens. Sustainable urban design can reduce heat and water stress, can make cities more walkable, and comprehensive planning and design approaches can bring nature-based solutions. climate proving of infrastructure, as well as socio-economic approaches to resilience together. UN Habitat support cities, assessing resiliency problems, making policy and regulatory suggestions, proposing policies, specific project and program, linking city official and urban designers with donors and financiers to fund implementation and ensuring better coordination between city, national, and regional policymakers. At the city level, UN Habitat City Resilient Global Program demonstrates how reliable, validated data is crucial for successful disaster risk management processes. Data and evidence-based policy are the building blocks of resilience. To ensure policy is translated into action on the ground effectively, the City Rep initiative also places community-based approaches at the center of resilient building. UN Habitat has supported climate change strategies in over 11,000 cities through the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy. In this case, helping these cities reduce their greenhouse gas emission and build resilience in energy efficiency. Your Excellency, as we head to the UN Climate Conference, the COP26 in Glasgow, it is clear that we need to be as inclusive as possible. We need more multilateralism and greater global cooperation. The developing world cannot be left behind without an all-of-society action plan. We cannot hope to meet the 1.5-degree target to leave future generations a habitable planet. Let me here highlight the importance of UN Habitat's flagship program, Resilient Settlement for the Urban Poor. It takes a comprehensive planning and design approach to informal settlement. The fact that this flagship program remains underfunded is a major opportunity cost. We cannot build resilience until all of us are included in the wider effort to make cities resilient. City-to-city cooperation and collaboration mechanism can lead to more integrated and effective response to climate crisis and others, and also serving as a catalyst for developing or improving local solutions and contributing to increase city-to-city exchange of capacity and knowledge. World Cities Day is an opportunity for us at UN Habitat to share our resources and solutions to the urban challenges facing cities and communities. I am very delighted that we have launched the latest edition of the Shanghai Manual 2021 together with the Shanghai Index. And I would like to thank the governments of the People's Republic of China and the Shanghai Municipal People's Government for their continuing involvement in the World Cities Day. Today, we reinforce our commitments towards our global agenda, the Sustainable Development Goal, especially the SDG 11 on sustainable cities and communities, the Sendai Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction, the Paris Agreement on Climate Change, and the new Urban Agenda. By delivering on these global commitments, we have the potential to transform towards sustainable and resilient society. World Cities Day marks the end of Urban October, which has been promoting ambitious climate action in cities. If you recall, we started Urban October by focusing on innovative solutions towards a carbon-free world in the World Habitat Day. Throughout the month, we saw great governmental, city, and community efforts to join up their effort to focus on mitigation efforts. The ambitious Saudi Green Initiative, launched in Riyadh, being one. The Innovative 4 Cities Conference, co-hosted by the UN Habitat and the Global Covenant of Mayors for Climate and Energy, being another major step. As I said at the outset, this Global Observant World Cities Day is our way of marking the opening of the UN Climate Change Conference, COP26, where we expect to learn how countries are stepping up their climate ambitions. More importantly, this event gives voice to cities and communities as part of the solution at the front line of the climate crisis, and why we must be champion of our own field. I'll be traveling to COP26 immediately after this meeting, Your Excellency, and I pledge to take forward the innovative ideas and best practices being discussed here in Luxor to Glasgow to share with the global community. We also have with us the President of the UN Habitat Assembly, Your Excellency Madam Mata Delgado, whom I am sure will also lend her voice making a case for sustainable urbanization and local action at COP26. I'm sure she will. Let us work together to ensure we turn challenges into solution and solution into opportunities. We turn plan and policy into action and action into impact. And I would like to start to announce that let us strive for a cleaner, greener, safer, healthier, and happier city on this historic global celebration of World Cities Day in Luxor, Egypt, 31st October 2021. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you so much, Excellency Madam Maimouna Mohammed Sharif, on that history-making event, as Her Excellency has wisely said. Right now, we'll be hearing from His Excellency, the Minister of Local Development of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency Major General Mahmoud Sha'rawi, with few remarks. Your Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيد الأستاذ الدكتور مهندس مصطفى مدبولي رئيس مجلس الوزراء، السيدة السفيرة ميمونة محمد شريف وكيل الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة والمدير التنفيذي لمنظمة الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، السادة الوزراء والمحافظون، السادة عمداء ومحافظو المدن 1200 مدينة تحتفل في ذلك اليوم على يمكن على متواصل على اتصال مباشر بالإنترنت معنا حاليا في يوم الاحتفال الحالي، السادة والسيدات الحضور. بداية اسمحوا لي أن أرحب بحضراتكم في هذا الملتقى الهام الذي تستضيفه مصر تحت رعاية فخامة السيد رئيس الجمهورية، والذي يعقد بمدينة الأقصر التي ولدت على أرضها أقدم الحضارات وشيدت على ضفتي نيلها أبرز شواهد العمران منذ آلاف السنين. لنستلهم من عظمة تاريخها وعمق تراثها رؤيتنا المستقبلية لمدن العالم. لقد جسد المصري القديم على هذه الأرض حضارة لا يزال العالم يقف حائرا أمام أسرارها، وفي الوقت الراهن يشهد العالم ما تقوم به الدولة المصرية من إعادة إحياء لتراث أجدادها من خلال تبني برامج غير مسبوقة للتنمية والعمران في كافة ربوع مصر منذ عام 2014 وفق رؤية واضحة للدولة وقيادة حكيمة من فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي. استطاعت مصر تحقيق طفرة تنموية غير مسبوقة لكافة القطاعات بلا استثناء، حيث اجتازت مرحلة صعبة من مراحل الإصلاح الاقتصادي بشهادة كافة المؤسسات الدولية وشركاء التنمية، وشهدت بنية أساسية متطورة لخدمة الاقتصاد والاستثمار، وأحدثت تحولا جذريا في مستوى الخدمات المقدمة للمواطنين، وحسنت كافة مؤشرات جودة الحياة. السيدات والسادة، يأتي ملتقى هذا العام تحت عنوان تكيف وتغيير وتعزيز قدرات المدن لمقاومة التغيرات المناخية، ويستهدف تعزيز اهتمام المجتمع الدولي بالتنمية الحضرية المستدامة في إطار أهداف الأمم المتحدة للتنمية المستدامة والأجندة الحضرية، ودفع عجلة التعاون بين البلدان والمدن لمعالجة تحديات التحضر والمساهمة في تعزيز الطموح للمدن في الحد من التأثيرات السلبية للتغيرات المناخية وتحقيق حياة أفضل للمواطنين. كما يأتي هذا الملتقى في الوقت الذي يتكاتف في العالم بمواجهة واحدة من أخطر الأزمات التي مر بها في تاريخه المعاصر، وهي جائحة كورونا التي أثرت على البنى الاقتصادية في العالم، ووضعت كافة الحكومات والشعوب والمنظمات الدولية أمام مسؤولية إدارة مرحلة التعافي الاقتصادي والاجتماعي واستعادة الحياة الطبيعية، والتفكير في سبل تعزيز العمل المشترك للتصدي لمثل هذه الأخطار والأزمات العالمية في المستقبل. ولا يخفى على حضراتكم أن التغيرات المناخية ما تمثله من خطورة على مستقبل هذا الكوكب تتطلب تضافر الجهود وتوحيد الرؤى والتحرك بشكل جماعي منسق بهدف تفادي تصاعدها من خلال العمل معا على خفض الانبعاثات الكربونية ومحاولة التقليل من تأثيراتها ومخاطرها من خلال التعاون التنموي البناء بين دول العالم، حيث أن هناك خطرا حقيقيا يهدد مصادر المياه ومصادر الغذاء في كافة دول العالم بلا استثناء نتيجة ما وصلنا إليه من مستوى مقلق ويدعو للخوف فيما يتعلق بالانبعاثات الكربونية والتغيرات المناخية، فضلا عن تزايد معدلات التلوث البيئي بأنواعه واختلال التوازن البيولوجي والإيكولوجي. ومن هنا تأتي أهمية هذا الملتقى الذي يعد فرصة لنفكر معا في مستقبل مدننا وكيف يمكن تبني رؤية عامة للتطور الحضري تحد من التأثيرات السلبية للمتغيرات المناخية، وفي ذات الوقت تتسم بالاستدامة والمرونة اللازمة للتكيف مع المتغيرات المناخية، وهو ما يتكامل مع الخطوة التي اتخذتها حكومة جمهورية مصر العربية بتكليف من فخامة السيد الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي لاستضافة مؤتمر المناخ 2022 وتسخير جهودها لاحتضان الدول الأفريقية لهذا الحدث الهام واستكمال ما سينتج من مؤتمر المناخ 2021 في المملكة المتحدة. السيدات والسادة، لقد نجحت مصر خلال السنوات السبع الماضية في صناعة نهضة تنموية عمرانية غير مسبوقة، حيث أعادت الدولة رسم وصياغة الخارطة العمرانية القومية بما يتناسب مع مساحة مصر وحضارتها وخصوصيتها، وفق استراتيجية شاملة للتنمية العمرانية تشمل تأسيس وتشييد مجتمعات عمرانية ومدن جديدة على الطراز الحضري والمعماري الحديث، وتطوير المناطق السكنية القائمة بالفعل على أسس تخطيطية وإنشائية سليمة تتناسب مع التغيرات المكانية والزمانية، فضلا عن القضاء على ظاهرة البناء العشوائي والعشوائيات واستعادة الشكل الحضاري للشوارع والمباني المصرية بما يلبي طموحات المواطن في الارتقاء بجودة الحياة داخل المدن المصرية. وفي سياق متصل أطلق السيد رئيس الجمهورية في شهر يوليو 2021 مبادرة حياة كريمة، والتي من المستهدف إنجازها خلال 3 سنوات بتكلفة تقديرية تفوق 700 مليار جنيه، وتستهدف تطوير 4500 قرية في 20 محافظة وتحسين جودة الحياة بما يعادل 58 من السكان، علما بأن 93% من هذه القرى تعاني من عشوائية العمران. السيدات والسادة، وفي ختام كلمتي أكرر ترحيبي بحضراتكم على أرض مصر الطيبة وفي رحاب حضارتها العظيمة وتاريخها المشرف، وأؤكد تطلعنا للتعرف على خبرات الدول المشاركة في التنمية الحضرية المستدامة وبخاصة في التصدي للتأثيرات المناخية، كما نتطلع للتنسيق والتعاون وتبادل الخبرات والتجارب والأفكار مع كافة المشاركين في مختلف دول العالم والاستفادة من الشراكة الوثيقة التي تربطنا مع منظمة الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you very much, Major General Mahmoud Sha'rawi, Minister of Local Development of the Arab Republic of Egypt, for your important remarks. Now I am extremely honored to welcome the Prime Minister of the Arab Republic of Egypt, His Excellency, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, to address the audience. Your Excellency.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السيدة ميمونة محمد شريف، وكيل الأمين العام للأمم المتحدة والمديرة التنفيذية لبرنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية UN Habitat، السيدات والسادة الوزراء الحضور، السيدات والسادة المحافظين وعمداء المدن من كل أنحاء العالم، السادة السفراء، ضيوف مصر الكرام. اسمحوا لي في البداية أن أرحب بكم في مدينة الأقصر، مدينة الحضارة والتاريخ، وبين رحاب آثارها ومعابدها لنشهد معا كيف حافظت مصر عبر الأجيال على هذا التراث العالمي رصيدا للإنسانية وشاهدا على تطورها. واسمحوا لي أن أنقل لكم تحيات فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي رئيس الجمهورية وترحيبه بوجودكم اليوم في هذا الحدث العالمي الهام والذي نشرف بأن يكون تحت رعايته الشخصية، حيث يشارك حاليا سيادته ضمن زعماء العالم في قمة جلاسكو كوب 26. في البداية على أن المدن على الرغم مما تمثلها هي المسؤولة عن معظم ظاهرة تغير المناخ والتي تؤدي إلى العديد من ظهور التأثيرات والعواصف العنيفة. وفي الواقع تنتج المدن الرئيسية، وهذا هو السبب الرئيسي في أن موضوع من أجل المرونة المناخية والقدرة على مقاومة هذه التغيرات، وهو يمثل موضوع مهم لفتح النقاش بين مسؤولي المدن ورؤساء البلديات والمحافظين والقطاع الخاص والمجتمع الدولي حول كيفية دعم مدننا في تحقيق الالتزام العالمي لخلق عالم خال من الكربون. لذا يستلزم ما تقدم أن نعمل من أجل تحفيز استدامة ومرونة المدن من خلال التوسع بالبناء الأخضر والمساحات الخضراء المفتوحة واستثمار الطاقات المتجددة. ويجب أن يتضمن تخطيط وتصميم مدننا المبادئ التي تعزز أنماط الحياة الصحية التي تعتمد بشكل أكبر على وسائل النقل غير الآلية مثل المشي وركوب الدراجات والاعتماد على منظومات النقل الجماعي الصديق للبيئة. السيدات والسادة، تضع مصر ملف التنمية الحضرية في مقدمة أجندتها التنموية، حيث يوجد فصل كامل عن التنمية الحضرية المستدامة في الاستراتيجية الوطنية رؤية مصر 2030، والتي تتماشى تماما مع أهداف التنمية المستدامة أو SDGs. وأول هدف من أهداف الثمانية الرئيسية لرؤية مصر هو الارتقاء بجودة حياة المواطن المصري وتحسين مستوى معيشته، وذلك لتحقيق أهداف الأجندة الحضرية الجديدة وأهداف التنمية المستدامة، خاصة الهدف 11 الذي يدعو لجعل المدن والمستوطنات البشرية شاملة وآمنة ومرنة ومستدامة. الحضور الكريم، بالنسبة إلى اهتمام الدولة المصرية بالبيئة، فتنص المادة 46 من الدستور المصري لعام 2014 على أن لكل شخص الحق في بيئة صحية سليمة وحمايتها هو واجب وطني، وتلتزم الدولة باتخاذ التدابير اللازمة للحفاظ عليها وعدم الإضرار بها والاستخدام الرشيد للموارد الطبيعية بما يكفل تحقيق التنمية المستدامة وضمان حقوق الأجيال القادمة. وتتضمن رؤية مصر 2030 هدف الاستدامة البيئية سعيا للحفاظ على التنمية والبيئة معا من خلال الاستخدام الرشيد للموارد بما يحفظ حقوق الأجيال القادمة في مستقبل أكثر أمنا وكفاية، ويتحقق ذلك بمواجهة الآثار المترتبة على التغيرات المناخية وتعزيز قدرة الأنظمة البيئية على التكيف والقدرة على مواجهة المخاطر والكوارث الطبيعية وزيادة الاعتماد على الطاقة المتجددة وتبني أنماط الاستهلاك والإنتاج المستدامة. هذا ويتضمن البعد البيئي للرؤية برامج متخصصة بما في ذلك تطوير البنية التحتية اللازمة للحد من تلوث الهواء ومواجهة التغيرات المناخية، تبني سياسات مقاومة المناخ في تخطيط المدن الجديدة للحد من تلوث الهواء والتكيف مع تغير المناخ وحماية البيئة. وبوصف مصر طرفاً في اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية لتغير المناخ United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change، تقر حكومة مصر بأهمية العمل التشاركي لتحقيق الهدف النهائي للاتفاقية، والمتمثل بشكل أساسي في الحفاظ على تركيزات الغازات الدفيئة في الغلاف الجوي عند مستوى يحد من التأثيرات السلبية للأنشطة البشرية على نظام المناخ العالمي. وكانت مصر قد قدمت لسكرتارية الاتفاق الأول في عام 1999 وتقرير الإبلاغ الوطني الثاني عام 2010، وتقرير الإبلاغ الوطني الثالث في عام 2016. وأعدت الحكومة المصرية تقريرها الأول المحدث كل سنتين المعروف بالPUR لتقديمه إلى سكرتارية اتفاقية الأمم المتحدة الإطارية لتغير المناخ في 2018. وتقوم حالياً مصر بإعداد الإبلاغ الوطني الرابع لتقديمه إلى سكرتارية الاتفاقية UNFCCC، الذي يبني على كل ما سبقه من تقارير ودراسات أخرى متعلقة بتغير المناخ. وسيقوم الإبلاغ الوطني الرابع بتحديث وتعزيز المعلومات المقدمة فيما يتعلق بالظروف المناخية وقوائم جرد غازات الاحتباس الحراري والسياسات والتدابير المتخذة للتخفيف من تغير المناخ، وتقييمات القابلية للتأثر بتغير المناخ والخطوات المتخذة للتكيف مع تغير المناخ، ومعلومات عن الوعي العام والتعليم والتدريب والبحوث والمراقبة المنهجية ونقل التكنولوجيا. وفي هذا السياق يسعدنا أن تقوم جمهورية مصر العربية باستضافة النسخة 27 من مؤتمر الأمم المتحدة لتغير المناخ COP27 في عام 2022 نيابة عن قارة أفريقيا في مدينة شرم الشيخ، وأن تكون اجتماعات اليوم من خلال الاحتفالية باليوم العالمي للمدن حافزا للمناقشات الحاسمة لتطوير خطط التنفيذ اللازمة للوصول إلى عالم خال من الكربون بحلول عام 2050. الحقيقة أن مصر تقوم في مجال التنمية العمرانية المستدامة بالعديد من البرامج والمشروعات القومية التي أعتبرها على المستوى الشخصي والمستوى المحترف إلهاماً للعديد من الدول والمدن على مستوى العالم. فقد تبنت مصر مشروعاً قومياً للتنمية الحضرية من خلال إنشاء مجموعة أو جيل جديد من المدن الجديدة المبنية على أسس المدن الخضراء والمدن المستدامة والمدن الذكية، وتأتي على رأسها العاصمة الإدارية الجديدة ومدينة العالمين و20 مدينة أخرى يتم بناءها جميعاً في وقت واحد، وكلها تتبع هذه الأسس والمبادئ القائمة على الاستدامة البيئية الخضراء. ولكن في نفس الوقت لم نهمل مدننا القديمة ومدننا القائمة، حيث تشهد جميع هذه المدن طفرة هائلة في تطوير البنية التحتية وفي تطوير المناطق غير الآمنة أو السلامز والمناطق العشوائية غير المخططة، وتطوير شبكات البنية الأساسية والطرق والمناطق الخضراء والمناطق المفتوحة بها. أيضا المناطق الأثرية والتراثية والتي تأتي على رأس أولويات أيضا الحكومة في عملية التطوير. بالإضافة إلى ذلك فهناك العديد من مشروعات النقل الحضري القائم على أحدث التقنيات البيئية المستدامة التي تتم حاليا لربط كل المدن من الداخل، وأيضا ربطها فيما بينها وبينها البعض. وأيضا فيما أثارته السيدة المديرة التنفيذية من ازدياد الفجوة بين المدن والمناطق الريفية أو المدن والريف، فالحقيقة أن ما تقوم به مصر من خلال مبادرة فخامة الرئيس عبد الفتاح السيسي حياة كريمة، والتي تستهدف تطوير كل القرى المصرية في خلال 3 سنوات بتمويل يتجاوز 40 مليار دولار أمريكي، بهدف توفير كل الخدمات من البنية الأساسية والخدمات المجتمعية والتنمية الاقتصادية والبيئية لهذه القرى، لهو بحق أيضا مشروع يعني يكون إلهاما لكل دول العالم في كيفية التصدي لهذه الإشكالية من اتساع الفجوة بين المدن والريف بصورة متكاملة وشاملة كما تقوم به مصر حاليا. وأخيرا أود أن أنتهز هذه الفرصة لأهنئ هيئة المجتمعات العمرانية الجديدة بوزارة الإسكان مرة أخرى على فوزها بالجائزة التقديرية التي يمنحها برنامج الأمم المتحدة للمستوطنات البشرية، والتي تعد واحدة من أرقى الجوائز على مستوى العالم في مجال التنمية الحضرية. وتقر هذه الجائزة بالجهود التي بذلتها الحكومة المصرية ممثلة في وزارة الإسكان لدعم التنمية الحضرية المستدامة في مصر، وتحفزنا في الوقت نفسه لمواصلة هذا الأداء على نفس المستوى والمعايير لضمان إنشاء مجتمعات حضرية متكاملة وشاملة وعادلة للجميع. ختاماً أجدد الترحيب بكم في مدينة الأقصر، وأتمنى لكم عملاً ناجحاً، وأشكركم على اختيار مدينتنا لاستضاف هذا الحدث الهام. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, Prime Minister of Egypt, Dr. Mustafa Madbouli, for this important insights. We were really honored by Your Excellency's presence and sharing in this important session. Ladies and gentlemen, well, this brings us to the end of the opening ceremony of the official global observance of World Cities Day. I would like to extend my deepest gratitude to all our speakers in the room and also online, and particularly to His Excellency, the Prime Minister, for joining us today. I would like also to thank you, the audience. The roundtables will start at 2 p.m. sharp with Roundtable 1 on climate adaptation for the most vulnerable people. That would be taking place in Nile Room, while Roundtable 2 on the Innovate for Cities conference outcome is going to be in Room Ra, which is next door. Then at 4 p.m. would be Roundtable 3 on Towards a Resilient and Green Future, COVID-19 Recovery in Partnership. This will be in Room Ra. Roundtable 4 on Climate Change in the Arab region, the challenges and the opportunities will be in here, Room Nile. Our online audiences can follow also on Zoom and on YouTube too. The closing session will be at 6 p.m. Cairo local time in this room. And we request the audience here in Luxor to proceed at the main restaurant of the hotel, while our dignitaries should assemble outside near the exhibition for the official photograph and also for the inauguration of the exhibition. Thereafter, the dignitaries will be joining you all for lunch. I thank you so much again, and we'll see you at 2 p.m. local time. Thank you so much for joining us.